frizzy, and held back from her blackened face by a once blue kerchief. Overhead, German planes begin to fill the sky, their engines droning. Vera yells for her sister as she scrambles over the broken earth, leading the way, pushing debris aside. "Come on!" "It sounds like Mama's sewing machine." Vera turns at that, looks back. Olga is still standing there, too far away, her hand tented over her eyes. "Run!" Vera yells at the same time the bomb hits. Olga is there and gone, flung like a rag doll to the side. She falls in a broken heap on the other side of the trench while debris rains down. Vera is screaming, crying. She crawls out of the trench and over the broken earth to where her sister lies beneath a pile of dirt and rubble. A brick is on Olga's chest. Where did it come from? Blood gushes from the side of Olga's mouth and slides through the soot and mud on her cheek. Her breathing is a phlegmy, bubbling cough. "Vera," she says, shuddering. "I forgot to get down." "You're supposed to listen to me," Vera says. She holds her sister to her chest, trying to keep her alive by loving her. "I am your big sister. Always bossing." Vera kisses her sister's cheek, tries to wipe the blood away, but her hands are so dirty she is just making a mess. "I love you, Olga. Don't leave me, please." Olga smiles and coughs. Blood gushes from her nose and mixes with dirt. "Remember when we went?" And she is gone. Vera sits there a long time, kneeling in the dirt, until the soldiers come and take Olga away. Then she goes back to digging. It isn't that she doesn't care or doesn't hurt. But what else can she do? 22. In August, Vera is released from work on the line. She is one of thousands of dazed, solitary women walking in silent groups for home. The trains are still running, although most of them are full all the time, and only the luckiest find space enough to sit or stand. They are evacuating the children of Leningrad again, this time with their mothers. But Vera does not trust her government anymore and will not follow the evacuation order again. Only last week she heard of a train of children that was bombed near Maga. Maybe it is true, maybe it is not. She does not care. It could be true, and that is enough for her. She is tougher now, after 2 months spent digging in the black earth and running for shelter. Tough enough to make her way home through countryside she's never seen. When she is lucky, a transport or a lorry picks her up and takes her as far as they are going. But luck is a thing she has never counted on, and most of the miles to Leningrad she walks. When she meets soldiers on the road, she asks about Sasha, but she does not get answers. It is no surprise to her. When she finally makes it to Leningrad, she finds a city as changed as she. Windows are blacked out and crisscrossed in tape. Trenches cut through parks, tearing through grass and flowers. Everywhere she looks are mounds of broken cement. Dragon's teeth, they are called, meant to bar the tanks. Huge iron beams crisscross the city boundaries like the ugly, misplaced bars of a prison. And soldiers move in marching columns through the streets. Already many of them look as broken as she feels. They've lost on one front and are moving to another, closer to the city. In their tired eyes, she sees the same fear that is now lodged inside of her. Leningrad is not the impervious city they'd imagined her to be. The Germans are getting closer. Finally, Vera stands on her own street and looks up at her apartment. Except for the blacked-out windows, it looks as it always did. The trees out front are in full summer bloom, and the sky is as blue as a robin's egg. As she stands there, afraid to go forward, a feeling moves through her as powerful as hunger or desire. She shivers with it. It is wanting to turn and run, to hold on to this terrible truth a little longer, but she knows that running will not help. So she takes a deep breath and walks forward, one step at a time, until she is at her own front door. It opens at her touch, and suddenly she is in her home again, as small and cluttered as it is. Never has the broken-down furniture and peeling paint looked so beautiful. And there is her mama, standing at the stove in a faded dress, with her gray hair all but hidden beneath a threadbare kerchief, stirring something. At Vera's entrance, she turns slowly. Her smile is heartbreaking. Worse is the way it fades away and is replaced by sorrow. "Mama!" Leo screams, coming at her like a windstorm, toys dropping from his hands. Anya is beside him in an instant, and they throw themselves into Vera's arms. They smell so good, so pure. Leo's cheeks are as soft and sweet as ripe plums, and Vera could eat him up. She holds them too long, too tightly, unaware that she has begun to shake and to cry. "Don't cry, Mama," Anya says, wiping her cheek. "I still have the butterfly. I didn't break it." Vera slowly releases them and stands up. She is shaking like a leaf and trying not to cry as she stares across the kitchen at her mother. In that look, Vera feels her childhood leave her at last. "Where's Aunt Olga?" Leo asks, looking past her. Vera cannot answer. She just stands there. "Olga is gone," Mama says with only a slight tremble in her voice. "She is a hero of the state, our Olga, and that is how we must think of her." "But—" Mama takes Vera in her arms, holding her so hard that neither can breathe. There is only silence between them. In that silence, memories pass back and forth like dye in water, moving and fluid, and when they pull back and look at each other, Vera understands. They will not speak of Olga again. Not for a long time. Not until the sharp pain rounds into something that can be handled. "You need a bath," Mama says after a time. "And those bandages on your hands need changing, so come along." Those first days back in Leningrad seem like a dream to Vera. During the day, she works alongside other library employees, packing up the most valuable books for transport. She, who is so low on the roster, finds herself actually holding a first edition of Anna Karenina. The pages have an unexpected weight, and she closes her eyes for just a moment. In the darkness, she sees Anna, dressed in jewels and furs, running across the snow to Count Vronsky. Someone says her name so sharply, she almost drops the treasured volume. Starting, she flushes and lowers her gaze to the floor, mumbling, "Sorry," and goes back to work. By the end of the week, they have packed up more than 350,000 masterpieces and sent them out of harm's way. They filled the attic with sandbags and moved other important works to the basement. Room after room is cleared out and boarded up and shut down until only the smallest of the rooms is left open for readers. By the end of her shift, Vera's shoulders ache from all the lifting and dragging of boxes, but she is far from finished for the day. Instead of going home, she trudges through the busy camouflaged streets and gets into the first queue she finds. She doesn't know what they are selling at this market, and she doesn't care. Since the start of bread rationing and the limitations placed on the withdrawal of banking accounts, you take what you can get. Like most of her friends and neighbors, Vera has very little money. Her rations allow her 400 grams of bread a day and 600 grams of butter a month. On this, they can live. But she thinks often of a decision she made years ago. If she worked now in the bread factory, her family would be better fed. She would be an essential worker with higher rations. She stands in line for hours. At just past 10 o'clock in the evening, she comes to the front. The only thing left for sale are jars of pickles, and she buys 3, the amount she can afford and carry. In the apartment, she finds her mother and grandmother sitting at the kitchen table, passing a cigarette back and forth between them. Saying nothing, they all say little these days, she goes past them to the children's beds. Leaning down, she kisses both tender cheeks. Exhausted and hungry, she goes back into the kitchen. Mama has put out a plate of cold kasha for her. The last transport left today, Baba says when Vera sits down. Vera looks at her grandmother. I thought they were still evacuating the city. Mama shakes her head. We could not decide, and now it is decided for us. The Germans have taken Magah. Vera knows what this means, and if she did not, the look of despair in her mother's eyes would have been enough to inform her. So, Leningrad is an island now, Mama says, taking a drag off the cigarette and handing it back to Baba. Cut off from the mainland on all sides. Cut off from supplies, Vera thinks. What do we do? Vera asks. Do? Baba says. Winter is coming, Mama says in the silence. We need food and a bourgeoiska. I will take the children and go to the marketplace tomorrow. What will you trade? My wedding ring, Mama says. So, it has begun, Baba says, stubbing out the cigarette. Vera sees the way they look at each other, the knowing sadness that passes between mother and daughter. And although it scares her, it comforts her too. They have been through this before, her mama and her babushka. War is nothing new to Peter's city. They will survive as they have survived before, by being careful and smart. The city becomes one long line. Everything is disappearing, especially politeness. Rations are consistently being cut, and often there is no food to be had, even with a ration card. Vera, like everyone else, is tired and hungry and afraid. She wakes at 4 in the morning to stand in line for bread, and after work, she walks miles to the outskirts of town, bartering with peasants for food. A liter of vodka for a bag of withered potatoes, an outgrown pair of valenki for a pound of lard, and digging up whatever forgotten vegetables she can find. It is not safe, and she knows it, but there is nothing to be done. This search for food is all there is. No one goes to the library anymore, but Vera must keep working there to keep her workers' rations. Now she is on her way home from the country. She moves quickly, keeping to the shadows with her precious bag of potatoes hidden inside her dress like an unborn baby. She is less than a mile from the apartment when the air raid alarm goes off, blaring through the nearly empty city streets. When it stops, she can hear the planes buzzing, growing closer. She hears a loud whistling and starts to run for one of the trenches in the park to her left. Before she is even across the street, something explodes. Dirt and debris rain down from the sky. One building after another is destroyed. And then, silence. Vera gets up slowly, her legs unsteady. The potatoes are okay. She crawls out of the trench. Dusting herself off, she runs for home. The city is burning and smoking around her. People are screaming and crying. She turns the corner and sees her apartment building. It is intact. But the building next door is demolished. Only half of it remains. The other side is a pile of smoking, pulverized rubble. As she draws near, she sees a living room in perfect shape. Green flowered wallpaper still in place, a table still set for dinner, a painting on the wall. But no people. As she stands there, the chandelier above the table shudders and falls, crashing across the dishes on the table. She finds her family in the basement, huddled alongside their neighbors. When the all clear sounds, they go back upstairs and put the children in bed. It is only the beginning. The next day, Vera goes with her mother and the children to the market, where they search for burjuika. Without such a stove, her mother says, they will have problems come winter. They find one deep in the back of the market, in a stall run by the kind of people Vera normally would never see. Swarthy, drunken men and women wearing jewels they surely hadn't owned a week ago. Vera holds her children close, trying not to make a face as the man's vodka breath washes over her. "This is the last one," he says, leering at her, swaying. Mama takes off her wedding ring. The gold shines dully in the morning light. "I have this gold ring," she says. "What good is gold?" he sneers. "The war won't last forever," Mama says. And there's more. She opens her coat and pulls out a large jar full of white sugar. The man stares at it. Sugar is like gold dust now. Baba or Mama must have stolen it from the warehouse where they work. The man's ham-sized fist snakes out. His fingers coil around the jar and pull it back. Mama hardly seems to care that her ring is gone, that a man like that has possession of it. Together, the four of them drag the stove and pipe back to their apartment, pull it up the stairs in clanging bursts. When it is up and in place, its vent going out the window, Mama clasps her hands. "That's that," she says, coughing. The stove is a small, ugly thing, cast iron with a pair of drawers that jut out brokenly. A long metal pipe goes from the stove, up the side of the wall, and out through a newly cut hole. She finds it hard to believe that it is worth a woman's wedding ring. "That was a lot of sugar," Vera says quietly as Mama walks past her. "Yes," Mama says, pausing. "Baba brought it to us." "She could get in trouble," Vera whispers, moving closer. "The Badaev warehouses is watched. Almost all of the city's food stores are there, and both of you are employees. If one of you gets in trouble—" "Yes," Mama says, looking at her hard. "She is still there now, working late. She will be the last one to leave." "But you do not yet know," Mama says, coughing again. It is a hacking, bubbly sound that unaccountably makes Vera think of muddy rivers and hot weather. "Are you okay, Mama?" "I am fine. It is just the dust in the air from the bombings." Before Vera can answer, or even think of what to say, the air raid alarm sounds. "Children!" she screams. "Come quickly!" Vera grabs the coats from the wall and bundles her children up. "I don't want to go to the basement," Leo whines. "It stinks down there." "Mrs. Nevsky is the one who stinks," Anya says, and her frown turns to a smile. Leo giggles. She smells like cabbage. Hush, Vera says, wondering how long this childhood will last for her babies. She buttons Leo's coat and takes his hand. Out in the hallway, the neighbors are already lining up for the stairs. On all of their faces is the same look, a combination of fear and resignation. No one really believes that being in the basement will save them from a bomb falling on their building. But at a time like this, there is no other salvation. So they go. Vera kisses each of her children, hugs them fiercely in turn, and then hands them over to Mama. While her family and neighbors go down to save themselves, Vera goes up. Breathing hard, she runs up the dirty, dark staircase and emerges onto the flat, litter-strewn roof. A long pair of iron tongs and several buckets full of sand are in place along the short wall. From here, she can see across Leningrad to the south. In the distance are the plains. Not one or two as before, but dozens. At first they are tiny black dots, dodging between giant barrage balloons that hang above the city, but soon she can see their shiny propellers and the details on their tails. Bombs fall like raindrops. In their wake, puffs of smoke and flashes of fire. A plane is overhead. Vera looks up, sees its glistening silver belly open up. Incendiary bombs drop out. She watches in horror as one lands not more than 15 feet from where she is standing. She runs for it, hearing its hiss. Her foot catches on a piece of wood, and she falls to the ground so hard she tastes blood. Scrambling back up, she reaches for the gloves in her pocket and puts them on, shaking, trying to hurry. Then she grabs up the iron tongs and tries to use them to pick up the bomb. It is an intricate task. She takes too long and fire catches on the wooden beam beneath the bomb. Smoke rises up. She positions the tongs on the bomb. The heat on her face is terrifying. She's sweating so she can hardly see. Still, she clamps the handles and lifts the long bomb and throws it off the side of the building. It lands with a thud on the grass below, where it can do no real damage. Dropping the tongs, she runs back to the small fire started by the bomb and stomps the flames out with the soles of her shoes, then pours sand on it. When the fire is out, she drops to her knees. Her heart is going a mile a minute, and her cheeks feel singed by the heat. If she hadn't been here, that bomb would have burned its way down through the building, falling from floor to floor and leaving fire in its wake. The basement is where it would have ended up. In that tiny room, jam-packed with people, with her family. She stays there, kneeling on the hard surface of the roof as night falls. The whole city seems to be on fire. Smoke rolls upward and out. Even after the airplanes are gone, the smoke remains, growing thicker and redder. Bright yellow and orange flames flicker up between the buildings, lick at the smoke's swollen underbelly. When the all clear finally sounds, Vera is too shaken to move. It is only the thought of her children, who are probably crying now and afraid, that makes her move. One shaking step at a time, she walks across the roof and down the stairs to her apartment, where her family is already waiting for her. "Did you see the fires?" Anya asks, biting her lip. "They are far away from here," Vera says, smiling as brightly as she can. "We are safe." "Will you tell us a story, Mama?" Leo says, popping his thumb in his mouth. His eyes lower sleepily and reopen. Vera scoops both her children into her arms, settles one on each hip. She doesn't bother to brush their teeth, just puts them to bed and climbs in with them. At the table in the living room, Mama sits down and lights up her one cigarette for the day. The smell of it is lost in the overwhelming scent of the city burning. There is something almost sweet in the air. a smell like caramel left too long on a hot stove. Vera tightens her hold on her children. "There is a peasant girl," she says, trying to sound calm. It is hard. Her thoughts are tangled up in what could have happened, what she could have lost, and she would swear that she can still hear that bomb whistling toward her, rustling impossibly in flight and banging down beside her. "Her name is Vera," Anya says sleepily, snuggling close. "Right?" "Her name is Vera," she says, thankful for the prompting. "And she is a poor peasant girl, a nobody. But she doesn't know that yet." "It is good you tell them your story," Mama says to Vera when she comes back into the kitchen. "I couldn't think of anything else." She sits down across from her mother at the rickety table, putting one foot on the empty chair beside her. Though the windows are closed and blacked out, she can still taste ash on her tongue, still smell that strange burned sweetness in the smoke. The world outside can only be seen in patches, in places where the newspaper droops limply away from the glass. The view is no longer red, but rather a dull orangey gold mixed with gray. "Papa used to tell me wonderful stories, remember?" "I prefer not to remember." "But your Baba should have been home by now," Mama says, not looking at her. Vera feels a sharp clutch in her stomach at that. With all that has gone on tonight, she'd forgotten about her grandmother. "I'm sure she's fine," Vera says. "Yes," Mama says dully. But in the morning, Baba is still not back. She is one of the thousands who are never seen again. And news moves through the city as ruinously as last night's flames. The Badaev warehouses are burned. All of the city's food stores are gone. Leningrad is isolated now, cut off from all help. September drips into October and disappears. The Belle Noche is gone, replaced by a cold, dark winter. Vera still works in the library, but it is for show and ration cards. Few people visit the library or the museums or theaters anymore, and those who do come are looking for heat. In these darkening weeks, when winter's icy breath is always blowing on the back of your neck, there is nothing except the search for food. Every day, Vera is up at 4 o'clock in the morning, bundling up in her Valenki and woolen coat, wrapping a scarf around her neck so high only her eyes show. She gets in whatever queue for food she can find. It isn't easy just getting in line, let alone actually finding food. The strong push the weak out of the way. You have to be careful always, on guard. That nice young girl on the corner could steal from you in an instant. So might the old man standing on the stoop. After work, she comes home to her cold apartment and sits down to a meal at 6 o'clock. Only it is not much of a meal anymore. A potato, if they are lucky, with some kasha that is more water than buckwheat. The children complain constantly, while Mama coughs quietly in the corner. In October, the first snow falls. Usually this is a time of laughter, when children run out to the parks with their parents and build snow angels and forts. Not in wartime, though. Now it is like tiny specks of white death falling over their ruined city. Its pretty white layer covers all their defenses, the dragon's teeth, the iron bars, the trenches. Suddenly, the city is beautiful again, a wonderland of arching bridges and icy waterways and white parks. If you don't look at the crumbling buildings or burned-out heaps of brick where once a store had stood, you could almost forget. Until 7 o'clock. That is when the Germans drop the bombs. Every night, like clockwork. And once the snow starts to fall, it never stops. Pipes freeze, trolleys come to a stop, and remain stuck in the accumulating snow. There are no tanks or trucks in the road anymore. No marching troops. There are just bundled up women like Vera, moving through the white landscape like refugees in search of anything resembling food. There is not a pet to be seen in Leningrad these days. Rations are cut almost every week. Vera trudges forward. She is so hungry that it is difficult to keep moving. Difficult sometimes even to want to keep moving. She tries not to think about the 7 hours she spent in line today, and focuses instead on the sunflower oil and oil cakes she was able to get. Behind her, the red sled she drags glides through the deep drifts, catching every now and then on things hidden in the snow. A twig, a rock, a frozen body. The corpses began showing up last week. People still dressed for the weather, frozen in place on park benches or on the stoops of buildings. You learn not to see them. Vera cannot believe that this is true, but it is. The hungrier and colder you get, the more your vision funnels to where you can't see anyone beyond your own family. She's 4 blocks from her apartment, and her chest aches so much that she longs to stop. She even dreams of it. She'll sit on that bench and lean back and close her eyes. Maybe someone will come by with some hot, sweet tea and offer her a cup. She draws in a ragged breath, ignoring the gnawing emptiness in her belly. Those are the kinds of dreams that get you killed. You sit down to rest and just die. That's how it happens in Leningrad now. You have a little cough, or an infected cut, or you feel sluggish and you want to stay in bed for just an hour or so. And then suddenly you're dead. Every day at the library, it seems, someone fails to show up. In that absence, they all know. They'll never see that person again. She puts one foot in front of the other and slowly makes her way in the snow, dragging her sled behind her. She has come almost a mile from the Neva River, where she collected a gallon of water from a hole in the ice. At the apartment, she pauses just long enough to catch her breath, and then begins the long climb to the 2nd floor. The gallon of water she'd had on the sled feels icy cold against her chest, and the cold makes her lungs hurt even more. The apartment is warm. She notices instantly that another chair is broken. It lies on its side, 2 legs missing, and the back hacked up. They cannot all sit at the table now. But what does it matter? There's precious little to eat. Leo is wearing his coat and his boots. He is sprawled on the kitchen floor, playing war with a pair of metal trucks. At her entrance, he cocks his head and looks at her. For a second, it is as if she's been gone a month instead of a day. She sees the way his cheeks have caved in on themselves, the way his eyes seem too big for his bony face. He doesn't look like a baby boy at all anymore. "Did you get food?" he says. "Did you?" Anya says, rising from her place on the bed, carrying her blanket with her. "Oil cakes," Vera says. Anya frowns. "Oh no, Mama." Vera's heart actually hurts when she hears this. What she wouldn't give to bring home potatoes or butter or even buckwheat. But oil cake is what they have now. No matter that it used to be fed to cattle, or that it tastes like sawdust, or that it's so hard that only an axe will cut it. They use shavings to make pancakes that are barely edible. But none of that matters. What matters is that you have something to eat. Vera knows that comfort will not help her children. This is a lesson she has learned since the snow began to fall on Leningrad. Her children need strength and courage now, as they all do. It does no good to cry or whine for that which cannot be had. She goes over to the fallen chair and breaks off another leg. Cracking it in 2 pieces, she feeds it into the bourgeoiska and puts the water she brought home in a pot to boil. She will put yeast in it to fill their bellies. It won't help, of course, but they'll feel better for a while. She bends down, feeling the hot popping in her joints at the movement, and puts a hand on Leo's curls. His hair, like all of theirs, is stiff from dirt. Baths are luxuries these days. "I have some more of the story for tonight," she says, waiting for his enthusiasm. But he just nods a little and shrugs. "Okay." It is wearing all of them away, the cold and the hunger. With a sigh, she gets back to her feet, rising like an old woman. She glances across the room at her mother, who is still in bed. To Anya, she says, "How is she today?" Anya stands there, her pale, thin face so drawn that her eyes seem to protrude. "Quiet," is all she says. "I made her drink water." Vera goes to her small, serious daughter and picks her up, hugging her tightly. Even through the bulk of her coat, she can feel Anya's boniness, and it breaks her heart. "You are my best girl," she whispers. "You are taking such good care of everyone." "I'm trying," Anya says, and the earnestness in her voice almost makes Vera feel ill. Vera hugs her again and then lets go. As she crosses the room, Vera can feel her mother's eyes on her, following her movements like a hawk. Everything about Mama is pale and shrunken and colorless, except for those dark eyes that hold on to Vera like a fist. She sits down at her bedside. "I got some oil cakes today, and a little sunflower oil." "I am not hungry. Give mine to our babies." It is what Mama says every night. At first, Vera argued, but then she started to see Anya's cheekbones and heard the way her son cried in his sleep for food. "I'll make you some tea." "That would be nice," Mama says, letting her eyes drift shut. Vera knows how hard her mother has worked to stay awake in the hours that Vera is gone. It takes every scrap of Mama's will and courage simply to lie here and watch her grandchildren during the day, though she hasn't gotten out of bed for more than a few minutes at a time in weeks. "There will be more food next week," Vera says. "I heard they're sending a transport across Lake Ladoga as soon as the water freezes. Then we'll all be fine." Her mother says nothing to that, but her breathing doesn't even out either. "Do you remember how your papa used to pace when he was working? How he muttered words to himself and laughed when he found what he wanted?" Vera reaches out to touch her mother's dry forehead, strokes it gently. "He used to read his poetry to me sometimes when he was working. He'd say, 'Varushka, when you are old enough to write your own stories, you'll be ready. Now listen to this.' Sometimes I feel him in here. And Olga. I can hear them talking, moving. I think they're dancing. There's a fire in the stove when they're here, and it's warm." Vera nods, but says nothing. More and more often lately, Mama sees ghosts. Sometimes she talks to them. It is only when Leo starts to cry that she stops. "I'll add a drop of honey into your tea. And you need to eat today, okay? Just today." Mama pats Vera's hand and sighs quietly. Every day that winter, Vera wakes thinking one of 2 things. It will get better today, or it will be over soon. She doesn't know how it is possible to believe simultaneously that her situation will improve and that she will die. But there it is. Each cold morning, she wakens with a start and reaches for her children, who are in bed with her. When she feels the slow, steady beating of their hearts, she breathes easily again. It takes courage to get out of bed. Even wearing every piece of clothing she owns and layered beneath all their blankets, she isn't warm. And once she climbs from bed, she will be freezing. While they sleep, water freezes in pots in the kitchen, and their eyelashes stick to skin, sometimes so hard that blood is drawn when they open your eyes. Still, she eases the blankets back and climbs out over her children, who moan in their sleep. Mama, on her other side, doesn't make a sound, but she shifts almost imperceptibly to the left. They all sleep together for warmth now, in the bed that had once been her grandmother's. In stockinged feet, Vera goes to the stove. It is not far. They have moved their bed as close to the burjuica as possible. The remaining furniture is cluttered together, unimportant except for the wood from which it is made. She grabs an axe from the closet and hacks through the last of the bed that was once her own. Then she starts a fire in the little burjuica and puts water on to boil. While she's waiting, she kneels in the corner of the kitchen and pries up a floorboard. There, hidden in the dark, she counts up their stores. It is something she does every day, sometimes 4 times a day. A nervous habit now. A bag of onions, a half a bottle of sunflower oil, some oil cakes, a nearly empty jar of honey, 2 jars of pickles, 3 potatoes, and the last of the sugar. She carefully takes out 1 large yellow onion and the honey, then replaces the floorboard. She will boil half an onion for breakfast and add a drop of honey to their tea. She has just measured out a small amount of tea when there is a knock at the door. At first, she hardly recognizes the sound. It is so foreign. There is no talking in Leningrad anymore. No neighbors stopping by. Not here, at least, where their whole family is together. But there is danger. People who will kill for a gram of butter or a spoonful of sugar. She reaches for the axe again, holds it to her chest as she goes to the door. Her heart is beating so fast and hard she feels dizzy. For the first time in months, she forgets that she is hungry. With a trembling hand, she reaches for the doorknob and turns it. He stands there like a stranger. Vera stares up at him and shakes her head. She has become like her mama, hungry enough and sick enough to see ghosts. The axe falls from her grasp, thunks on the floor at her feet. "Verushka?" he says, frowning. At the sound of his voice, she feels herself start to fall. Her legs are giving out on her. If this is dying, she wants to give in, and when his arms come around her and hold her up, she is sure she is dead. She can feel the warmth of his breath on her throat. He is holding her upright. No one has held her in so long. "Verushka," he says again, and she hears the question in his voice, the worry. He doesn't know why she hasn't spoken. She laughs. It is a cracked, papery sound, rusty from disuse. "Sasha," she says, "am I dreaming you?" "I'm here," he says. She clings to him, but when he goes to kiss her, she draws back in shame. Her breath is terrible. Hunger has made her smell foul. But he won't let her pull away. He kisses her as he used to, and for a sweet, perfect moment, she is Vera again, a 22-year-old girl in love with her prince. When finally she can bear to let him go, she stares up at him in awe. His hair is gone, shaved down to nothing, and his cheekbones are more pronounced. And there is something new in his eyes, a sadness, she thinks, that will now be a mark of their generation. "You didn't write," she says. "I wrote every week. There is no one to deliver the letters." "Are you done? Are you back now?" "Oh, Vera. No." He closes the door behind him. "Christ, it's cold in here. And we're lucky. We have a burzhuyka." He opens his ragged coat. Hidden beneath it are half a ham, 6 sausage links, and a jar of honey. Vera goes almost lightheaded at the sight of meat. She cannot remember the last time she tasted it. He sets the food down on the table. Taking her hand, he walks over to the bed, stepping around the broken furniture on the floor. At the bedside, he stares down at his sleeping children. Vera sees the tears that come to his eyes, and she understands. They do not look like his babies anymore. They look like children who are starving. Anya rolls over in bed, bringing her baby brother with her. She smacks her lips together and chews in her sleep, dreaming. And then she slowly opens her eyes. "Papa?" she says. She looks like a little fox with her sharp nose and pointed chin and sunken cheeks. "Papa?" she says again, elbowing Leo. Leo rolls over and opens his eyes. He doesn't seem to understand or doesn't recognize Sasha. "Quit hitting me!" he whines. "Are these my little mushrooms?" Sasha says. Leo sits up. "Papa?" Sasha leans down and scoops his children into his arms as if they weigh nothing. For the first time in months, the sound of their laughter fills the apartment. They fight to get his attention, squirming like a pair of puppies in his arms. As he takes them over toward the stove, Vera can hear snippets of their conversation. "I learned to make a fire, Papa. I can cut wood. Ham, you brought us ham?" Vera sits down beside her mother, who smiles. "He's back," Mama says. "He brought food," Vera says. Mama struggles to sit up. Vera helps her, repositions her pillows behind her. Once she's upright, Mama's foul breath taints the air between them. "Go spend the day with your family, Vera. No lines. No getting water from the Neva. No war. Just go." She coughs into a gray handkerchief. They both pretend not to see the bloody spots. Vera strokes her mother's brow. "I'll make you some sweet tea, and you will eat some ham." Mama nods and closes her eyes again. Vera sits there a moment longer, listening to the strange mix of Mama's troubled breathing and her children's laughter and her husband's voice. It all leaves her feeling vaguely out of place. Still, she covers her mother's frail body and stands up. "He is so proud of you," Mama says on a sigh. "Sasha?" "Your papa." Vera feels an unexpected tightness in her throat. Saying nothing, she walks forward, and Leo's laughter warms her more than the burning legs of any old desk ever could. She gets out her cast-iron frying pan and fries up some of the ham in a tiny spot of sunflower oil and adds sliced onions at the last minute. A feast. The whole room smells of rich, sizzling ham and sweet caramelized onions. She even adds extra honey to their tea, and when they all sit on the old mattress to eat, there are no chairs anymore. No one says anything. Even Mama is lost in the unfamiliar sensation of eating. "Can I have more, Mama?" Leo says, wiping his finger in the empty cup, looking for any trace of honey. "No more," Vera says quietly, knowing that as kingly as this breakfast is, it is not enough for any of them. "I say we go to the park," Sasha says. It's all boarded up, Anya tells him. Like a prison. No one plays there anymore. We do, Sasha says, smiling as if this is an ordinary day. Outside, the snow is falling. A veil of white obscures the city, softens it. The dragon's teeth and trenches are just mounds of snow and hollowed-out white valleys, respectively. Every now and then a white hillock sits on a park bench or lies by the side of the road, but it is easy to miss. Vera hopes her children do not know what is beneath the cover of snow. In the park, everything is sparkling and white. The sandbagged bronze horseman is only visible in pieces. The trees are frosted white and strung with icicles. It amazes Vera that not a tree has been cut down here. There are no wooden fences or benches or railings left in the city, but no tree has been cut down for firewood. The children immediately rush forward and drop onto their backs, making snow angels and giggling. Vera sits by Sasha on a black iron bench. A tree shivers beside them, dropping ice and snow. She takes his hand, and although she cannot feel his flesh beneath her glove, the solid feel of him is more than enough. They are making an ice road across Ladoga, he says at last, and she knows it is what he has come to tell her. I hear trucks keep falling through the ice. For now, but it will work. They will get food into the city, and people out of it. Will they? It's the only evacuation route. Is it? She glances sideways, deciding not to tell him about their other evacuation, how she almost lost their children. I will get all of you passes as soon as it's safe. She does not want to talk about any of this. It doesn't matter. Only food matters now, and heat. She wishes he would just hold her and kiss her. Maybe they will make love tonight, she thinks, closing her eyes. But how could she? She is too weak to sit up sometimes. Vera, he says, making her look at him. She blinks. It is hard sometimes to stay concentrated, even now. What? She stares into his bright green eyes, sharp with both fear and worry, and suddenly she is remembering the first time they met, the poetry. He said something to her, a line about roses, and later, in the library, he said he'd waited for her to grow up. You stay alive, he says. She frowns, trying to listen carefully. Then he starts to cry, and she understands. I will, she says, crying now too. And keep them well. I'll find you a way out, I promise. You just have to hang on a little while longer. Promise me. He shakes her. Promise me. The three of you will make it to the end. She licks her cracked, dry lips. I will, she says, believing it. Believing in it. He pulls her close and kisses her. He tastes like sweet summer peaches, and when he draws back, they are both done with crying. It's your birthday tomorrow, she says. 26, he says. She leans against him. His arm comes around her. For a few hours, they are just a young family playing in the park. People hear the children laughing and come to see. They stand at the edges of the park like confused mental patients suddenly set free. It has been a long time since any of them heard a child laugh. It is the best day in Vera's life, as impossible as that sounds. The memory of it is golden, and as she walks home, holding his hand, she can feel herself protecting it. It is a light she will need in the months to come. But when she gets home, she knows instantly that something is wrong. The apartment is dark and freezing. She can see her breath. On the table, a pitcher of water is frozen solid. frost shines on the metal stove. The fire has gone out. She hears her mother coughing in bed, and she runs to her, yelling at Sasha to build a fire. Her mother's breathing is noisy and strained. It sounds like old fruit being pushed through a sieve. Her skin is as pale as dirty snow. The flesh around her mouth is darkening, turning blue. "Verushka," she whispers. Or did she really speak? Vera doesn't know. "Mama," she says. "I waited for Sasha," Mama says. Vera wants to beg with her, to plead, to say that he is not back, he is only visiting, and that she needs her mother. But I can't say anything. All I can do is sit there, staring down at my mother, loving her so much I don't even remember how hungry I am. "I love you," Mama says softly. "Never forget that." How could I? Don't try. That's what I mean. Mama struggles to lean forward, and it's terrible to watch the effort it takes. So I lean forward and take her in my arms. She's like a stick doll now. Her head lolls back. "I love you, Mama," I say. It is not enough, those 3 little words that suddenly mean goodbye, and I am not ready for goodbye, so I keep talking. I hold her close and say, "Remember when you taught me to make borscht, Mama? And we argued about how small to cut the onions and why to cook them first? You made a pot and put the vegetables in raw so I could taste the difference, and you smiled at me then and touched my cheek and said, 'Do not forget how much I know, Verushka. I am not done learning from you.'" At that, I feel my throat tighten and I can't say anything more. She is gone. I hear my son say, "Mama, what's wrong with Baba?" And it takes all my strength not to cry. But what good will crying do? Tears are useless now in Leningrad. 23. The silence that followed was so thick and gray, Meredith expected to taste ash. I can't say anything, she thought. She looked at her mother, still in bed, with her knees drawn up and the covers pulled to her chin, as if a bit of wool could somehow protect her. "Are you okay, Mom?" Nina said, getting up. How could I be? Meredith got up too. Although they said nothing, didn't even make eye contact, Meredith felt for once as if they were in perfect agreement. She took her sister's hand and they walked over to the bed. "Your mother and sister knew how hard you tried, and how much you loved them," Meredith said. "Do not do that," Mom said. Meredith frowned. "Don't do what?" "Make excuses for me." "It's not an excuse, Mom. Just an observation." "They must have known how much you loved them," Meredith said, as gently as she could. Nina nodded. "But you didn't," Mom said, looking at each of them in turn. Meredith could have lied then. Could have told her 81-year-old mother that yes, she'd felt loved. And even a week ago she might have done it to keep the peace. Now she said, "No, I never thought you loved me." She waited for her mother's response, imagining her saying something that would change everything, change them, though she didn't know what words those would be. In the end, it was Nina who spoke. "All these years, we wondered what was wrong with us. Meredith and I couldn't figure out how a woman who loved her husband could hate her own children." Mom flinched at the word hate and waved a hand in dismissal. "Go now." "It wasn't us, was it, Mom?" Nina said. You didn't hate your children. You hated yourself. At that, Mom crumbled. There was no other word for it. I tried not to love you girls, she said quietly. Now go. Leave me before you say something you'll wish you hadn't. What would that be? Nina asked, but they all knew. Just go. Please. Don't say anything to me until you've heard it all. Meredith heard the way Mom's voice caught on please and shook, and she knew how close Mom was to falling apart. Okay, she said, we'll go. She leaned down and kissed her mother's soft, pleated cheek, smelling the rose-scented shampoo she used on her hair. It was something she hadn't known, that her mother used scented shampoo. For the first time ever, she pulled her mother into an embrace and whispered, "Good night, Mom." All the way to the door, Meredith expected to be called back, to hear her mother say, "Wait!" But there was no last-minute revelation. Meredith and Nina went back to their own room. In a contemplative silence, they slipped past each other in the bathroom and brushed their teeth and put on their pajamas and climbed into their separate beds. It was all connected. Meredith knew that now. Her life and her mother's. They were joined, and not only by blood, by inclination, perhaps even by temperament. She was more and more sure that whatever loss had finally broken her mother, turned Vera into Anya, would have ruined Meredith too, and she was afraid of hearing it. "What do you think happened to Leo and Anya?" Nina asked. Meredith wished it wasn't a question. She would have preferred a statement she could ignore. Before this trip, and all that she'd learned about the three of them, she would have gotten angry or changed the subject, anything to obscure the pain she felt. Now she knew better. You carried your pain with you in life. There was no outrunning it. "I'm afraid to guess. What will happen to her when she gets to the end?" Nina asked quietly. That had begun to worry Meredith, too. "I don't know." According to their guidebook, Sitka was one of the most charming, and certainly among the most historic, of all Alaskan towns. 200 years ago, when San Francisco was barely a dot on the map of California, and Seattle was a hillside of ancient evergreens, this sleepy waterfront community had had theaters and music halls and well-dressed men in beaver hats drinking Russian vodka in the warm summer nights. Built and lost to fire and rebuilt again, the new Sitka was equal parts Russian, Tlingit, and American. Shallow water prohibited the arrival of big cruise ships, so Sitka waited, like a particularly beautiful woman, for visitors to arrive in small launches. As they entered Sitka Harbor, Nina took one picture after another. This was one of the most pristine places she'd ever seen. The natural beauty was staggering on this day of blue sky and golden sunlight, the water flat and sapphire blue. All around were forested islands, rising up from the quiet sea like a necklace of jagged jade pieces. Behind it all were the mountains, still draped in snow. On shore, Nina capped her lens and let the camera dangle around her neck. Mom stood with the hand tented over her eyes, gazing at the town laid out before them. From here they could see a spire rising high into the sky, its top a three-tiered Russian cross. Nina reached instinctively for her camera. Looking through the lens, she saw her mother's sharp profile soften when she looked at the church spire. "What's it like, Mom?" she said, moving closer. Seeing that. "It's been so long," Mom said, not looking away. "It makes me think Of all of it, I guess. On her other side, Meredith moved closer as well. The three of them followed the small crowd who'd come from the ship. They walked up Harbor Drive, and there were bits and pieces of Sitka's Russian past everywhere. Street names and store names and restaurant menus. There was even a totem pole downtown that had an emblem of Tsarist Russia carved into it. The double-headed eagle. Mom said almost nothing as they passed one reminder of her homeland after another. But when they pushed through the doors of St. Michael's Church, she stumbled and would have fallen if both girls hadn't reached out to steady her. There were glittering golden Russian icons everywhere. Some were ancient paintings on wooden boards. Others were jewel-studded masterpieces on silver or gold. White arches separated the rooms, their surfaces decorated in elaborate gold scrollwork. On display were ornately beaded wedding gowns and religious vestments. Mom looked at everything, touching what she could. Finally, she ended up at what Nina figured was the altar. A small area draped in heavy white silk, adorned with Russian crosses made of gold thread. There were candles all around, and a pair of old Bibles lay open. "Do you want us to pray with you?" Meredith asked. "No." Mom shook her head a little and wiped her eyes, although Nina had seen no tears. Then she walked out of the church and up a short distance. Nina could tell that her mother had studied a map of Sitka. She knew exactly where she was going. She passed a sign that advertised Russian-American history tours and turned into a cemetery. It was on a small rise, a grassy area studded with fragile-looking trees and clumps of brown bushes. A coppery dome, topped with a Russian cross, marked the hallowed ground. The grave markers were old-fashioned. Many were handmade. Even the marker for Princess Matsutov was a simple black sign. A white picket fence delineated the princess's final resting place. The few cement markers were overgrown with moss. It looked as if no one new had been buried here in years, and yet Mom moved over the bumpy ground, looking at every grave. Nina took a picture of her mother, who stood in front of a mossy headstone that had been knocked askew by some long-ago storm. The late spring breeze plucked at her tightly bound white hair. She looked ethereal, almost. Too pale and slim to be real. But the sadness in her blue eyes was as honest as any emotion Nina had ever seen. She put the camera down, let it hang, and moved in beside her mother. "Who are you looking for?" "No one," Mom said, then added, "Ghosts." They stood there a moment longer, both staring at the grave of Dmitri Petrovich Stolichnaya, who died in 1827. Then Mom straightened her shoulders and said, "I am hungry. Let us find some place to eat." She put her big, round Jackie O-style sunglasses on and coiled a scarf around her throat. The three of them walked back downtown, where they found a small restaurant on the water that promised Sitka's best Russian food. Nina opened the door, and a bell rang cheerily overhead. Inside the long, narrow room were a dozen or so tables. Most were full of people. They didn't look like tourists either. There were big, broad-shouldered men with beards that seemed to be made of iron shavings, women in brightly colored kerchiefs and dated floral dresses, and a few men in yellow plastic fishermen's overalls. A woman greeted them with a bright smile. She was older than her voice sounded, maybe 60, and pleasingly plump. Silvery curls framed an apple-cheeked face. She was the perfect portrait of a grandmother. "Hello there. Welcome to the restaurant. I'm Stacy, and I'll be happy to serve you today." Reaching for 3 laminated menus, she led them to a little table by the window. Outside, the water was a sparkling expanse of blue. A fishing boat motored into shore, its passage marked by silvery ripples. "What do you recommend?" Meredith asked. "I guess I'd have to say the meatballs. And we make our noodles from scratch, although the borscht is to die for, too." "How about vodka?" Mom said. "Is that a Russian accent?" Stacy asked. "I have not lived there for a long time," Mom said. "Well, you're our special guest. Don't you even look at the menu. I'll bring you something." She bustled away, whistling as she walked. Pausing briefly at a few other tables, she disappeared behind a bead-fringed curtain. A few moments later, she was back with 3 shot glasses, a frosted bottle of vodka, and a tray of black caviar with toast points. "Don't you dare say it's too expensive," Stacy said. "We get too many tourists and too few Russians. This is my treat. Vaše zdrowie." Mom looked up in surprise. Nina wondered how long it had been since she had heard her native language. "Vaše zdrowie," Mom said, reaching for her glass. The 3 of them clinked glasses, drank down their shots, and reached immediately for the caviar. "My daughters are becoming good Russians," Mom said. There was a softening in her voice as she said it. Nina wished she could see her mother's eyes, but the sunglasses created the perfect camouflage. "With 1 drink?" Stacy scoffed. "How can that be?" For the next 20 minutes or so, they talked about ordinary things. But when the waitress returned with the food, no one could talk about anything else. From tiny, succulent meatballs swimming in saffron broth, to mushroom soup with a bubbly Gruyere crust, to a moist salmon-stuffed veal roast with caviar sauce. By the time the apple and walnut strudel showed up, everyone said they were too full. Stacy smiled at that and walked away. Nina was the first to cut off a piece. "Oh, my God," she said, tasting the buttery walnut-filled pastry. Mom took a bite of the strudel. "It is like my mama used to make." "Really?" Meredith said. "She always said the secret was to slap the dough against the pastry board. When I was a girl, we often fought about this. I said it was unnecessary. I was wrong, of course." Mom shook her head. "Later, I could never make that dough without thinking of my mother. Once, when I served it to your father, he said the strudel was too salty. This was from my tears, so I put the recipe away and tried to forget it." "And did you?" Mom glanced out the window. "I forgot nothing." "You didn't want to forget," Meredith said. "Why do you say this?" Mom asked. "The fairy tale. It was the only way you could tell us who you were." "Until the play," Mom said. "I am sorry for that, Meredith." Meredith sat back in her seat. "I've waited for that apology all my life. And now that I have it, it doesn't matter. I care about you, Mom. I just want us all to keep talking." "Why?" Mom said quietly. "How can you care? Either one of you." "We tried not to love you, too," Nina said. "I would say I made it easy," Mom said. "No," Meredith said. "Never easy." Mom reached out and poured 3 more vodkas. Lifting her glass, she looked at her daughters. "What shall we drink to?" "How about family?" Stacy said, showing up just in time to pour a 4th shot. "To those who are here, those who are gone, and those who are lost." She clinked her glass against Mom's. "Is that an old Russian toast?" Nina asked after she'd downed her vodka. I've never heard it before, Mom said. It's what we say in my house, Stacy said. It's good, don't you think? Ah, Mom said, actually smiling. It is very good. On the walk back through town, Mom seemed to be standing taller. She was quick to smile or to point out a trinket in a store window. Meredith couldn't help staring. It was like seeing a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis, and somehow seeing her new mother, or her mother in this new light, made Meredith feel differently about herself. Like her mom, she smiled easier, laughed more often. Not once had she worried about the office or her girls or missing the ship. She'd been happy just to be, to flow on this journey with her mom and sister. For once, they felt as intertwined as strands of a rope. Where one went, the other belonged. Look, Mom said, as they came to the end of a street. At first, all Meredith saw were the quaint blue wooden shops and the distant snowy peak of Mount Edgecombe. What? There. Meredith followed the invisible line from her mother's pointing finger. In a park across the street, standing beneath a street lamp, twined in bright pink flowers, there was a family, laughing together, posing for silly pictures. There was a woman with long brown hair, dressed in crisply pressed jeans and a turtleneck. A blond man whose handsome face seemed hardly able to contain the breadth of his smile, and two tow-headed little girls, giggling as they pushed each other out of the picture. That is how you and Jeff used to be, Mom said quietly. Meredith felt a kind of sadness. It wasn't what she'd felt before. Not disappointment that her kids didn't call, or fear that Jeff didn't love her, or even worry that she had lost too much of herself. This new feeling was the realization that she wasn't young anymore. The days of frolicking with her little girls were gone. Her children were on their own now, and Meredith needed to accept that. They would always be a family, but if she'd learned anything from the past few weeks, it was that a family wasn't a static thing. There were always changes going on, like with continents. Sometimes the changes were invisible and underground, and sometimes they were explosive and deadly. The trick was to keep your balance. You couldn't control the direction of your family any more than you could stop the continental shelf from breaking apart. All you could do was hold on for the ride. As she stood there, staring at strangers, she saw her marriage in moments. She and Jeff at the prom, dancing under a mirrored ball to Stairway to Heaven and French kissing. Her in labor, screaming at him to stay the fuck away from her with those ice chips. Him handing her the first pages of his first novel and asking her opinion. And him standing beside her when Dad was dying, saying, "Who takes care of you, Mare?" and trying to hold her. "I've been an idiot," she said to no one except herself, forgetting for a moment that she was standing in the middle of a busy sidewalk flanked by eavesdroppers. "It's about time," Nina said, smiling. "I'm tired of being the only screw-up in this family." "I love Jeff," Meredith said, feeling both miserable and elated. "Of course you do," Mom said. Meredith turned to them. "What if it's too late?" Mom smiled. And Meredith was struck by both the beauty and the newness of the face she'd studied for decades. "I am 81 years old, telling my life story to my daughters. Every year I thought it was too late to start, that I'd waited too long. But Nina here won't take no for an answer. Finally, being a selfish bitch pays off." Nina reached into her camera bag and pulled out a clunky cell phone, flipping it open. "Call him." "Oh, we're having fun. It can wait." "No," Mom said sharply. "Never wait." "What if—" Mom laid a hand on her forearm. "Look at me, Meredith. I am what fear makes of a woman. Do you want to end up like me?" Meredith slowly reached out and removed her mother's sunglasses. Staring into the aqua blue eyes that had always mesmerized her, Meredith smiled. "You know what, Mom? I'd be proud to have your strength. What you've been through, and we don't know the worst of it, I think. It would have killed an ordinary woman. Only someone extraordinary could have survived. So yeah, I do want to end up like you." Mom swallowed hard. "But I don't want to be afraid. You're right about that. So give me that damn cell phone, Nina Beaner. I've got an overdue call to make." "We'll meet you on the boat," Nina said. "Where?" Mom actually laughed. "The bar, of course. The one with the view." Meredith watched her sister and mother walk down the sidewalk away from her. Although the wind was blowing slightly, tapping a seashell chime in the eaves beside her, and somewhere a boat honked its horn, she couldn't hear anything except the lingering echo of her mother's laughter. It was a sound she'd keep forever and pull out whenever she stopped believing in miracles. She crossed the street, stopping traffic with a smile and an outheld palm. Passing the family still taking pictures of each other, she went to a small wooden bench that read, "In memory of Myrna, who loved this view." She sat down on Myrna's bench and stared out at the gaggle of fishing and pleasure boats in the marina below. Masts cocked and swayed with every invisible movement of the water. Seabirds cawed out to tourists and dove for golden fries. She glanced at her watch, calculated Jeff's schedule, and dialed his number. It rang so many times she almost gave up. Then, finally, he answered, sounding out of breath. "Hello? Jeff?" she said, feeling tears rise up. It was all she could do to hold them back. "It's me. Meredith." She couldn't quite pinpoint the emotion in his voice, and that bothered her. Once she'd known every nuance. "I'm in Sitka," she said, stalling. "Is it as beautiful as they say?" No, she decided. She wasn't going to be afraid, and she wasn't going to waste time on the kind of facile conversations that had gotten her into this mess. "I mean, yes, it is beautiful here, but I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about our daughters either, or our jobs, or my mom. I want to say I'm sorry, Jeff. You asked me if I loved you, and I hit the brakes. I'm still not sure why. But I was wrong and stupid. I do love you. I love you, and I miss you, and I hope to hell I'm not too late, because I want to grow old with the man I was young with you." She drew in a sharp breath. It felt as if she'd been talking forever, spewing, really. And now it was up to him. Had she hurt him too much? Waited too long? When the silence went on, she could hear a squeaky spring as he sat down on a bad sofa, and then his sigh. She said, "Say something." December 1974. "What?" "I was in line at the Cub. Carrie Dover elbowed me, and when I looked over, I saw you standing by the tetherball. You'd been avoiding me, remember? After the Christmas play? You wouldn't even look at me for 2 years. I tried lots of times to walk up to you, but I always lost my nerve at the last second. Until that day in December. It was snowing, and you were standing there all by yourself, shivering, and before I could talk myself out of it, I walked over to you. Carrie was yelling that I'd lose my place in the food line, but I didn't care. When you looked up at me, I remember how hard it was to breathe. I thought you'd run away, but you didn't, and I said, 'Do you like banana splits?' He laughed. What an idiot. It was probably 25 degrees outside, and I asked about ice cream, but you said yes. I remember, she said quietly. We have 1,000 memories like that. Yes. I've tried to fall out of love with you, Mare. I couldn't do it, but I thought sure as hell you had. I didn't fall out of love with you either. I just fell. Can we start over? Hell no! I don't want to start over. I liked the middle. Meredith laughed at that. She didn't want to go back and be young again either, not with all the uncertainties and angst. She just wanted to feel young again, and she wanted to change. I'll be naked more, I promise. And I'll make you laugh more. God, I've missed you, Mare. Can you come home right now? I'll warm up the bed. Almost. She leaned back into the sun-baked wooden bench. For the next half hour, they talked like they used to, about anything and everything. Jeff told her he'd almost finished his novel, and Meredith told him part of her mother's story. He listened in obvious awe, offering memories that suddenly made sense. Times when Mom's behavior had seemed inexplicable. All that food, he said. And stuff, she said. They talked about the girls, and how they were doing in school, and what the summer would be like with the house full again. Have you figured out what you want? Jeff finally said. Besides me, that is. I'm working on it. I think I want to expand the gift shop. Maybe let Daisy run Belle Noci. Or even sell it. She was surprised by her own words. She didn't remember ever really thinking that before, but suddenly it made sense. And I want to go to Russia. Leningrad. You mean St. Petersburg, but it will always be Leningrad to me. I want to see the Summer Garden and the Neva River and the Fontanka Bridge. We never really went on a honeymoon. He laughed. Are you sure this is Meredith Cooper? Meredith Ivanovna Cooper. That's what my name would be in Russia. And yeah, it's me. Can we go? She could hear the laughter in Jeff's voice, and the love when he said, Baby, our kids are gone. We can go anywhere. 24. Juneau was the epitome of the Alaskan spirit. A state capital built with no roads leading in or out. The only way to get there was by boat or air. Surrounded by towering snow-clad mountains and tucked in between ice fields larger than some states, it was a rough-and-tumble city that clung tenaciously to its pioneer and native roots. If they hadn't been on a quest, or it hadn't been raining so hard, Nina felt sure they would have taken an excursion to see the Mendenhall Glacier. But as it was, the three of them were standing at the entrance to the Glacier View nursing home instead. Are you afraid, Mom? Meredith asked. I wasn't under the impression that he'd agreed to see me, Mom said. Not precisely, Nina said, but sooner or later, everyone talks to me. Mom actually smiled. God knows that is true. So are you afraid? Nina asked. No. I should have done this years ago. Perhaps if I had. No. I am not afraid of telling the story to this man who is collecting such memories. Perhaps if you had what? Meredith asked. Mom turned to look at them. Her face was shadowed by the black woolen hood she wore. I want you both to know what this trip has meant to me. Why do you sound like you're saying goodbye? Nina asked. Today, you will hear the terrible things I did, Mom said. We all do terrible things, Mom, Meredith said. You don't have to worry. Do we? Do we all do terrible things? Mom made a sound of disgust. This is the talk show babble of your generation. Here is what I want to say now, before we go in. I love both of you." Her voice cracked, turned harsh, but her gaze softened. "My Ninochka. My Marushka." Before either could even respond to the sweetness of their Russian nicknames, Mom turned on her heel and walked into the nursing home. Nina rushed to keep up with her 81-year-old mother. At the desk, she smiled at the receptionist, a round-faced, black-haired woman in a beaded red sweater. "We are the Whitson family," Nina said. "I wrote ahead to Dr. Adamovich and told him we'd be stopping by to see him today." The receptionist frowned, flipping through a calendar. "Oh, yes. His son Max is going to be here at noon to meet you. Would you like to have some coffee while you wait?" "Sure," Nina said. They followed the receptionist's directions to a waiting room filled with black and white images of Juno's colorful past. Nina took a place by the window in a surprisingly comfortable chair. Behind her, a large picture window looked out over a green forest threaded by falling rain. The minutes ticked past. People came and went, some walking, others in wheelchairs, their voices floating in and out with their presence. "I wonder what the Bella Noche is like here," Mom said quietly, gazing out the window. "It's better the farther north you go," Nina said, "according to my research anyway. But if you're lucky, sometimes you can see the northern lights from here." "The northern lights," Mom said, leaning back in her orange chair. "My papa used to take me outside in the middle of the night sometimes, when everyone else was asleep. He'd whisper, 'Varushka, my little writer,' and take my hand and wrap me in a blanket, and out we would go, into the streets of Leningrad, to stand and stare up at the sky. It was so beautiful. God's light show, my papa said, although he said it softly. Everything he said was dangerous then. We just didn't know it." She sighed. "I think this is the first time I've ever just talked about him. Just remembered something ordinary." "Does it hurt?" Meredith asked. Mom thought about that for a moment, and then said, "In a good way. We were always so scared to mention him. This is what Stalin did to us. When I first came to the United States, I could not believe how free everyone was, how quick to say what was on their minds. And in the 60s and 70s, she shook her head, smiling. My father would have loved to see a sit-in or the college kids demonstrating. He was like them. Like Sasha and your father. Dreamers." "Vera was a dreamer," Nina said gently. Mom nodded. "For a time." A man dressed in a flannel shirt and faded jeans walked into the room. With a thick black beard that covered half of his angular face, it was hard to make out his age. "Mrs. Whitson?" he said. Mom slowly stood. The man moved forward, his hand outstretched. "I am Maxim. My father, Vasily Adamovich, is the man you have come so far to see." Nina and Meredith rose as one. "It is many years since your father wrote to me," Mom said. Maxim nodded. "And I am sorry to say that he has suffered a stroke in the years between. He can barely speak, and can't move his left side at all." "So we are wasting your time," Mom said. "No, not at all. I have taken up a few of my father's projects, and the siege of Leningrad is one of them. It's such important work, gathering these survivor stories. It's only in the last 20 years or so that the truth is coming to light. The Soviets were good at keeping secrets." "Indeed," Mom said. "So if you'd like to come into my father's room, I'll record your account for his study. He may not appear to react, but I can assure you that he is happy to finally include your story. It will be the 53rd first-person account he has collected. Later this year, I'm going to St. Petersburg to petition for more records. Your story will make a difference, Mrs. Whitson, I assure you." Mom simply nodded, and Nina couldn't help wondering what she was thinking, now that they were coming to the time when the story would end. "Follow me, please," Maxim said. Turning, he led them down the brightly lit corridor, past hunched old women with walkers and tiny old men in wheelchairs, to a room at the very end of the hall. There was a narrow, hospital-style bed in the center of the room, and a couple of chairs that had obviously been brought in for this meeting. In the bed lay a shrunken man with a bony face and toothpick arms. Tufts of white hair sprang from his bald, spotted head and his wrinkled pink ears. His nose was like a raptor's beak, and his lips all but invisible. At their entrance, his right hand began to tremble, and the right side of his mouth tried to smile. Maxim leaned down close to his father, whispered something into his ear. The man in the bed said something, but Nina couldn't understand a word. "He says he is so glad to see you, Anya Whitson. He has waited a long time. My father is Vasily Adamovich, and he welcomes you all." Mom nodded. "Please sit down," Maxim said, indicating the chairs. On a table by the window were a copper samovar and several plates of pierogies and strudel and sliced cheese with crackers. Vasily said something. His voice crackled like a dried leaf. Maxim listened, then shook his head. "I'm sorry, Papa. I cannot understand. He is saying something about the rain, I think. I'm not sure. I'm going to record your story, Mrs. Whitson. Anya, may I call you Anya? Is the recording okay?" Mom was staring at the gleaming copper samovar and the row of silver-wrapped glass teacups. "Da," she said softly, flicking a hand in dismissal. Nina hadn't realized that she was the only one still standing. She went to the chair next to Meredith's and sat down. For a moment, the room was utterly still. The only noise in it was the tapping of the rain on the roof. Then Mom drew a long, slow breath and released it. "I have told this story in a single way for so long. I hardly know how to start now." "I hardly know how to start." Maxim hit the record button. It made a loud clicking sound, and the tape started to roll. "I am not Anya Petrovna Whitson. This is the name I took, the woman I became." She took another deep breath. "I am Veronika Petrovna Marchenko Whitson, and Leningrad is my city. It is a part of me. Long ago I knew those streets like I know the soles of my feet or the palms of my hands. But it is not my youth you are interested in. Not that I had much of one when I look back on it. I started to grow up at 15 when they took my father away, and by the end of the war, I was old. That is the middle, though. The beginning, really, is June of 1941. I am coming home from the country, where I'd been gathering vegetables to can for the coming winter." Nina closed her eyes and sat back, letting the words form pictures in her imagination. She heard things she'd heard before as a fairy tale, only this time they were real. There were no black knights or princes or goblins. There was only Vera, first as a young woman, falling in love and having her babies, and then as a woman afraid, digging on the Luga line and walking through bombed-out landscapes. Nina had to wipe her tears away when Olga died, and again when Vera's mother died. "She is gone," Mom says with a terrible simplicity. I hear my son say, "What's wrong with Baba?" And it takes all my strength not to cry. I pull the blanket up to Mama's chest, trying not to notice how bony her face has become in the last month. Should I have forced her to eat? This is a question that will haunt me for the rest of my life. If I had, I would have been pulling the blanket up on one of my children, and how could I have done that? Mama, Leo says again. Baba has gone to be with Olga, I say, and as hard as I try to be strong, my voice cracks, and then my children are crying. It is Sasha who comforts them. I have no comfort left inside of me. I am cold to the bone, afraid that if one of them touches me, I will crack apart like an egg. I sit next to my dead mother for a long time in our shadowy, cold room, with my head bowed in a prayer that comes too late. Then I remember a thing she said to me long ago, when I was the child who needed comfort. We will not speak of him again. At the time, I thought it was because of his danger to us, his crimes. But as I sit next to my mother, I feel her move beside me. I swear I do. She reaches over and touches my hand, and I feel warm for the first time in months, and I understand what she was saying to me then. Go on. Forget if you can. Live. It is not so much about who my father was, this advice. It is what life is about. What death does to you. When I look down, of course she is not moving. Her skin is cold, and I know she did not really speak to me, but she did. And so I do what I must. I stand up, feeling out my new role. I am a motherless daughter now, a sisterless woman. There is no one left of the family I was born into. There is only the family I have made. My mother is in all of us, though especially in me. Anya has my mother's solemn strength. Leo has Olga's easy laughter. And I have the best of both of them in me, and the dreams of my father, too, so it is my job to be all of us now. Sasha is beside me suddenly. He folds me into a hug, and I press my face into the cold curl of his neck. We will be away from here someday, he promises. We will go to Alaska, just like we talked about. It won't always be like this. Alaska, I say, remembering this dream of his, of ours. Land of the midnight sun, yes. But a dream like that, any dream, is far away now, and it only makes my pain worse. I look at him, and though he says something, I see his thoughts in his green eyes, or maybe it is my own thoughts reflected. Either way, we break apart, and Sasha says to our slumped, red-eyed children, Mama and I must go take care of Baba. Leo, sitting on the kitchen floor, starts to cry. But it is a pale imitation of my son's sadness, of his tears. I know. I have seen him burst into tears when he is healthy. Now he just leaks water from his eyes and sits there, too hungry and exhausted to do more. We'll stay here, Papa, Anya says solemnly. I'll take care of Leo. My good children, Sasha says. He keeps them busy while I wash Mama and dress her in her best dress. I try not to notice how shrunken and thin she is. Not really my mother at all, but it is true what they say. Children become adults who become children again. I cannot help thinking of this cycle as I gently wash my mother's body and button her buttons and pin her hair. When I am done, she looks like she is sleeping, and I bend down and kiss her cold, cold cheek and whisper my goodbye. Then it is time. Sasha and I dress for the cold. I put on everything I own. 4 pairs of socks, my mother's oversized Valenki pants, dresses, sweaters. I can barely fit into my coat, and once I have wrapped the scarf around my head, my face looks like a child's. Out we go, into the cold, black day. Street lamps are on in places, their light blurred by falling snow. We tie Mama to the little red sled that once was a familiar toy, and now is perhaps our most important possession. Sasha is strong enough to drag it through the heavy snow, thank God. I am weak. I try to hide it from my husband, but how can I? Every step through the knee-deep snow is a torture for me. My breath comes in great burning gasps. I want to sit down, but I know better. In front of us, a man weaves drunkenly forward, clutches a street lamp and bends over, breathing hard. We walk past him. This is what we do now, what we have become. When I look back, breathing hard myself, he has fallen in the snow. I know that when we go home, we will see his blue frozen body. Don't look, Sasha says. I see anyway, I say, and keep trudging forward. How can I not see? Rumors are that 3,000 people a day are dying, mostly old men and young children. We women are stronger somehow. Thankfully, Sasha is in the army, so we only have to stand in line a few hours for a death certificate. We will lose Mama's food ration, but lying about her death is more dangerous than starving. By the time we leave the warmth of standing in line, I am beyond exhausted. The hunger is gnawing at my belly, and I feel so lightheaded that sometimes I cry for no reason. The tears freeze on my cheeks instantly. There are street lamps on at the cemetery, although I wish it were dark. In the falling snow, the bodies are hidden, coated in white, but there is no mistaking them. Corpses stacked like firewood at the cemetery gates. The ground is too frozen for burial. I should have known this. I would have known it if my mind were working, but hunger has made me stupid and slow. Sasha looks at me. The sadness in his eyes is unbearable. I want to give in then. Just slump into the snow and stop caring. I can't leave her here, I say, unable to even count the bodies. Neither can I bring her home again. It is what too many neighbors have done, just set aside a place for the dead in their apartments, but I cannot do it. Sasha nods and moves forward, dragging the sled around the snowy mounds and into the dark, quiet cemetery. We hold hands. It is the only way we can know where the other is. We find an open space beneath a tree laced with snow and frost. I hope this tree will be the protector for her I was not. Our voices echo through the falling snow as we tell each other this is the place. I will always know this tree, recognize it, and here I will find her again someday, or at least I will stand here and remember her. From now on, I will always remember her on the 14th of December, wherever I am. It is not much, but it is something. I kneel in the snow. Even with gloves on, my fingers are trembling with cold as I untie the ropes and release her frozen body. I am sorry, Mama, I whisper, my teeth chattering. I touch her face in the darkness like a blind woman, trying to remember how she looks. I'll come back in the spring. Come on, Sasha says, pulling me to my feet. I know better than to kneel, even for this in the snow. Already my knees are colder. Soon I will not be able to feel my legs. We leave her there, alone. It is all we can do, Sasha says later as we trudge for home, our breathing ragged. All I want to do is lie down. I am so hungry and so tired and so sad. I do not even care if I die. Yes, I say. I don't care. I just want to stop. But Sasha is there, urging me forward, and when we get home and our children climb into bed with us, I thank God my husband is there. Don't you give up, he whispers to me in bed that night. I will find a way to get you out of here. I promise. I agree not to give up, though I don't know what it even means then. And in the morning, he kisses my cheek, whispers that he loves me, and he leaves. In late December, the city slowly freezes to death. It is dark almost all of the time. Birds drop from the sky like stones. The crows die first. I remember that. It is impossibly cold. 20 degrees below zero becomes normal. The streetcars stop in their tracks like children's toys that have fallen out of favor. The water mains burst. The sleds are everywhere now. Women drag them through the streets to carry things home. Wood from burned-out buildings, buckets of water from the Neva River, anything they can burn or eat. You'd be amazed what you can eat. There are rumors that the sausage sold in the markets is made from human flesh. I don't go to the markets anymore. What is the point? I see beautiful fur coats and jewels selling for nothing, and oil cakes made of warehouse sweepings and sawdust going for exorbitant prices. We do as little as we can, my children and I. Our apartment is black all the time now. There is only the briefest spasm of daylight, and very few candles are left to light the darkness. Our little bourgeoiska is everything now. Heat and light. Life. We have burned most of the furniture in our apartment, but some pieces are still left. The three of us are wrapped tightly together all night, and in the morning we waken slowly. We lie beneath all the blankets we have, with our bed pushed close to the stove, and still we waken with frozen hair and frost on our cheeks. Leo has developed a cough that worries me. I try to get him to drink hot water, but he resists me. I cannot blame him. Even after it is boiled, the water tastes like the corpses that lie on the river's frozen surface. I get up in the cold and take however long I must to break off a chair leg or shatter a drawer and feed the wood into the stove. There is a ringing in my ears and a kind of vertigo that often sends me sprawling at the merest step. I know my own body by its bones now. Still, I smile when I kiss my babies awake. Anya groans at my touch, and this is better than Leo, who just lies there. I shake him hard, yell his name. When he opens his eyes, I can't help falling to my knees. Silly boy, I say, wiping my eyes. I can't hear anything above the roaring in my ears and the hammering of my heart. I would give anything to hear him say he is hungry. I make us each a cup of hot water laced with yeast. It is no nutrition, but it will fill us up. Carefully, I take a piece of thick black bread, the last of this week's rations, and I cut it in thirds. I want to give it all to them, but I know better. Without me, they are lost, so I must eat. We each cut our third of a piece of bread into tiny pieces, which we eat as slowly as possible. I put half of mine in my pocket for later. I get up and put on all of my clothes. My children lie in the bed, snuggled close. Even from across the room I can see how skeletal they look. When last I bathed Leo, he was a collection of sharp bones and sunken skin. I go to them, sit by them on the bed. I touch Leo's cheeks, pull his knit cap down far enough to cover his ears. "Don't go, Mama," he says. I have to. It is the conversation we have every morning, and honestly, there is very little fight left in them. "I will find us some candy. Would you like that?" "Candy," he says dreamily, slumping back into his flattened pillow. Anya looks up at me. Unlike her brother, she is not sick. She is just wasting, like me. "You shouldn't tell him there will be candy," she says. "Oh, Anya," I say, pulling her into my arms and holding her as tightly as I can. I kiss her cracked lips. Our breath is terrible, but neither of us even notices anymore. "I don't want to die, Mama," she says. "You won't, moja dusza. We'll make sure of it." My soul. She is that. They both are. And because of that, I get up and get dressed and go to work. Out in the freezing darkness of early morning, I drag my sled through the streets. In the library, I go down to the one reading room that is open. Oil lamps create pockets of light. Many of the librarians are too sick to move, so those of us who are able move books and answer research questions for the government and the army. We go in search of books, too, saving what we can from bombed buildings. When there is nothing left to do, I queue up for whatever rations I can get. Today I am lucky. There is a jar of sauerkraut and a ration of bread. The walk home is terrible. My legs are so weak, and I cannot breathe, and I am dizzy. There are corpses everywhere. I no longer even go around them. I don't have the energy. Halfway home, I reach into my pocket and pull out my tiny piece of bread from the morning meal. I put it in my mouth, let it melt on my tongue. I can feel myself swaying. That white roar of noise is back in my ears. In the past few weeks, I have grown accustomed to the sound. I see a bench up ahead. Sit. Close your eyes for just a moment. I am so tired. The gnawing in my belly is gone, replaced by exhaustion. It is a struggle just to breathe. And then, amazingly, I see Sasha standing in the street in front of me. He looks exactly as he did on the day I met him, years ago, a lifetime. He isn't even wearing a coat, and his hair is long and golden. "Sasha," I say, hearing the crack in my voice. I want to run to him, but my legs won't work. Instead, I crumple to my knees in the thick snow. I can feel him beside me, putting his arm around me. His breath is so warm, and it smells of cherries. Cherries, like the ones Papa used to bring us. And honey. I close my eyes, hungry for the taste of him in his sweet breath. I can smell my mama's borscht. "Get up, Vera." At first, it is Sasha's voice, deep and familiar. And then it is my own, screaming, "Get up, Vera!" I am alone. There is no one here beside me, no lover's breath that smells of honeyed cherries. There is just me, kneeling in the deep snow, slowly freezing to death. I think of Leo's giggle, and Anya's stern look, and Sasha's kiss, and I climb slowly, agonizingly, to my feet. It takes hours to get home, although it is not far. When I finally arrive and stumble into the relative warmth of the apartment, I fall again to my knees. Anya is there. She wraps her arms around me and holds me. I have no idea how long we sit there, holding each other. Probably until the cold in the apartment drives us back into bed. That night, after a dinner of hot sauerkraut and a boiled potato, heaven, We sit around the little burzhika. "Tell us a story, Mama," Anya says. "Don't you want a story, Leo?" I scoop Leo into my arms and stare down at his pale face, made beautiful by firelight. I want to tell him a story, a fairy tale that will give him good dreams, but my throat is tight and my lips are so cracked it hurts to speak. So I just hold my babies instead, and the frosty silence lulls us to sleep. You think that things cannot get worse, but they can. They do. It is the coldest winter on record in Leningrad. Rations are cut and cut again. Page by page I burn my father's beloved books for warmth. I sit in the freezing dark, holding my bony children as I tell them the stories. Anna Karenina, War and Peace, Onegin. I tell them how Sasha and I met so often that soon I know the words by heart. It feels further and further away, though. Some days I cannot remember my own face, let alone my husband's. I can't recall the past, but I can see the future. It is in the stretched, tiny faces of my children. In the blue boils that have begun to blister Leo's pale skin. Scurvy. Lucky for me, I work in the library. Books tell me that pine needles have vitamin C, so I break off branches and drag them home on my sled. The tea I make from them is bitter, but Leo complains no more. I wish he would. Dark. Cold. I can hear my babies breathing in the bed beside me. Leo's every breath is phlegmy. I feel his brow. He is not hot, thank God. I know what has wakened me. The fire has gone out. I want to do nothing about it. The thought hits before I can guard against it. I could do nothing. Just lie there, holding my children, and go to sleep forever. There are worse ways to die. Then I feel Anya's tiny legs brush up against mine. In her sleep she murmurs, "Papa," and I remember my promise. I take forever to get up. Everything hurts. There is a ringing in my ears and my balance is off. Halfway to the stove, I feel myself falling. When I wake from my faint, I am disoriented. For a second, I hear my father at his desk writing. His pen tip scratches words across the bumpy linen paper. No. I go to the bookcase. Only the last of the treasure are left. My father's own poetry. I cannot burn them. Tomorrow, perhaps, but not today. Instead, I take the axe. It is so heavy, and crack off a piece of the side of the bookcase. It is thick, old wood, hard as iron, and it burns hot. I stand by the bed, in front of the fire, and I can feel how I am swaying. I know suddenly that if I lie down, I will die. Did my mother tell me this? My sister? I don't know. I just remember knowing the truth of it. I won't die in my bed, I say to no one. So I go to the only other piece of furniture left in the room, my father's writing desk. Wrapping myself in a blanket, I sit down. Can I smell him? Or am I hallucinating again? I don't know. I pick up his pen and find that the ink in the well is frozen solid. The little metal inkwell is as cold as ice, but I carry it to the stove, where we both warm quickly. Making a cup of hot water to drink, I go back to the desk. I light the lamp beside me. It is silly, I know. I should conserve this oil, but I can't just sit here in the icy black. I have to do something to keep alive. So I will write. It is not too late. I am not dead yet. I am Vera Petrovna, and I am a nobody. I will write and write on paper that I know I will soon have to burn, with a hand that trembles so violently my letters look like antelopes leaping across the sheet. Still I write, and the night fades. Some hours later, a pale gray light bleeds through the newsprint, and I know I have made it. I am just about to put the pen down when there is a knock at the door. I force my legs to work, my feet to move. I open the door to a stranger, a man in a big black woolen coat and a military cap. "Vera Petrovna Marchenko?" I hear his voice, and it is familiar, but I cannot focus on his face. My vision is giving me problems. "It is me, Dima Nevsky from down the hall." He hands me a bottle of red wine, a bag of candy, and a sack of potatoes. "My mama is too ill to eat. She won't make it through the day. She asked me to give this to you. For the babies, she said." "Dima," I say. And still I don't know who he is. I can't remember his mother either, my neighbor. But I take the food. I do not even pretend not to want it. I might even kill him for it. Who knows? "Thank you," I say. Or think I do, or mean to. "How is Alexander?" "How are any of us? Do you want to come in? It is a little warmer." "No, I must get back to my mother. I am not here long. It's back to the front tomorrow." When he is gone, I stare down at the food in awe. I am smiling when I waken Leo that morning and say, "We have candy." In January, I strap poor Leo to the sled. He is so weak, he doesn't even struggle. His tiny body is bluish-black and covered in boils. Anya is too cold to get out of bed. I tell her to stay in bed and wait for us. It takes 3 hours to walk to the hospital, and when I get there, people have died in line waiting to see a doctor. There are bodies everywhere. The smell. I lean down to Leo, who is somehow both bony and swollen. His tiny face looks like a starving cat. "I am here, my lion," I say, because I can think of nothing else. A nurse sees us. Even though we are 2 among hundreds, she comes over, looks down at Leo. When she looks up at me, I see the pity in her eyes. "Here," she says, giving me a piece of paper. "This will get him some millet soup and butter. There's aspirin at the dispensary." "Thank you," I say. We look at each other again, both knowing it is not enough. "He is Leo. My son was Yuri." I nod in understanding. Sometimes a name is all you have left. When I get home from the hospital, I cook everything I can find. I strip the wallpaper from the walls and boil it. The paste is made of flour and water, and it thickens into a kind of soup. Carpenter's glue will do the same thing. These are the recipes I teach my daughter. God help us. I boil a leather belt of Sasha's and make a jelly from it. The taste is sickening, but I get Leo to eat a little of it. In the middle of January, a friend of Sasha's arrives at our apartment. I can see that he is shocked by what he sees. He gives me a box from Sasha. As soon as he is gone, we crowd around to look at it. Even Leo is smiling. Inside are evacuation papers. We are to leave on the 20th. Beneath the papers is a coil of fresh sausage and a bag of nuts. In utter darkness, I pack up the whole of my life. Not that there is much left. Honestly, I do not know what I have taken and what I have left behind. Most of our possessions have either frozen or been burned. But I remember to take my writings and my father's, and my last book of poetry by Anna Akhmatova, I take all the food we have, the sausage, half a bag of onions, 4 pieces of bread, some oil cakes, a quarter of a jar of sunflower oil, and the last of the sauerkraut. I have to carry Leo. With his swollen feet and boil-covered arms, he can barely move, and I don't have it in me to waken him when he sleeps. The 3 of us leave in the darkness of mid-morning. Little Anya carries our only suitcase filled with food. All our clothes we are wearing. It is bitter cold outside and snowing hard. I hold her hand on the long walk to the train station, and once there we are both exhausted. In the train we cram together. We are 3 of many, but no one talks. The air smells musty, of body odor and bad breath and death. It is a smell we all recognize. I pull my babies close around me. I give Leo and Anya some wine to drink, but Leo is not happy with that. I cannot take out my food, not in this crowded train car. I could be killed for the oil cakes, let alone the sausage. I dig deep in my coat pocket, which I have filled with dirt from the ground outside the burned Badaev food warehouses. Leo eats the dirty, sugary particles greedily and cries for more. I do the only thing I can think of. I cut my finger and put it in his mouth. Like a newborn baby, he sucks on my finger, drinking my warm blood. It hurts, but not as much as hearing the congestion in his lungs or feeling the heat in his forehead. In a quiet voice, I tell them stories of their father and me, of a fairy tale love that seems so far away. Somewhere along that clackety trip, when I am so afraid and Leo is coughing terribly and Anya keeps asking when we will see Papa, I begin to call my husband a prince and Comrade Stalin the Black Knight, and the Neva River takes on magical powers. The train trip seems to last for a long time. My insides ache from being rattled around for so many hours. My fairy tale is the only thing that keeps us all sane. Without it, I think I might begin crying or screaming and never stop. Finally, we reach the edge of Lake Ladoga. There is ice as far as I can see. There is almost no difference between my view through a clean window and one through the fog of my own breath. We are at the start of the ice road. 25. The army has been working for months to make a road across frozen Lake Ladoga. The road is here now, and everyone is calling it the Road of Life. Soon, they say, transports of food will rumble across the ice toward Leningrad. Up until now, those same trucks kept falling through into the freezing black waters below. And, of course, the Germans bomb it constantly. I check my children's clothes. Everything is in place, just as it was when we left Leningrad. Leo and Anya are wrapped in newsprint, and then in all the clothes they own. We wrap scarves around our heads and necks. I try to cover everything, even Leo's small red nose. Outside, it hurts when I take a breath. My lungs ache. Beside me, Leo starts to cough. A full moon rises in the black sky, turning the snow blue. We stand around, all of us, matted together like cattle. Many people are coughing. Somewhere a child is crying. It occurs to me to wish that it were Leo. His quiet scares me. "What do we do, Mama?" Anya says. "We find the truck. Here, take my hand." My eyes water and sting as I start forward. Leo is in my arms, and as thin as he is, he weighs me down so that I can hardly move. Every step takes concentration, willpower. I have to lean into the howling wind. The only real thing in this icy blue and black world is my daughter's hand in mine. Somewhere, far away, I hear an engine idling and then roaring. It is a convoy, I hope. Come! I shout into the wind, or mean to. I am so cold, my knees hurt. It hurts even to bend my fingers enough to hold Anya's hand. I walk, and walk, and walk. And there is nothing. Just ice and black sky and the distant popping of anti-aircraft guns. I think I must hurry, and my babies. And then Sasha is beside me. I can feel the warmth of his breath. He is whispering about love and the place we will build for ourselves in Alaska, and he tells me it's okay for me to rest. Just for a moment, I say, falling to my knees before the words are even out of my mouth. The world is totally quiet then. Somewhere, someone laughs, and it sounds just like Olga. I will go find her as soon as I have a nap. This is the thought I have. And I close my eyes. Mama! 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 She is screaming in my face. I open my eyes slowly and see Anya. My daughter has pulled off her scarf and wrapped it around my neck. You have to get up, Mama, she says, tugging at me. I look down. Leo is limp in my arms, his head lolled back, but I can feel his breathing. I uncoil the scarf from around my neck and rewrap Anya's face. Never take your scarf off again. Do not give it to anyone, not even me. But I love you, Mama. And there is my strength. Gritting my teeth against the pain that will come, I stagger to my feet and start moving again. One step at a time, until a lorry materializes in front of me. A man dressed in baggy white camouflage is standing beside the door, smoking a cigarette. The smell of it makes me think of my mother. A ride across the ice, I say, hearing how cracked and weak my voice is. The man's face is not drawn or gaunt. This means he is somebody, or in the party at least, and I feel my hope plummet. He leans forward, looks at Leo. Dead? I shake my head. No, just sleeping. Please, I say, desperate now. All around me trucks are leaving, and I know we will die tonight, here, if we do not find a ride soon. I pull out the cloisonné butterfly made by my grandfather. Here. No, Mama, Anya says, reaching for it. The man just frowns. What good is a trinket? I pull off my glove and give him my wedding ring instead. It is gold, please. He looks me over as he takes one last drag of the cigarette and then drops it to the snow. All right, Baba, he says, pocketing my ring. Get in. I will take you and your grandchildren. I am so grateful. I don't even realize what he has said to me until later, when we are all packed into the cab of his truck. Baba. He thinks I am an old woman. I pull the scarf off and glance in the mirror above the windshield. My hair is as white as my skin. It is daylight when we get across the ice. Not much light, of course, but enough. I can really see where we are now. Endless snow. Trucks lined up, filled with food for my poor Leningrad. Soldiers dressed in white. Not far from here, 300 yards maybe, is the train station that is our next destination. The bombing starts almost immediately. Our driver stops and gets out. Honestly, I do not want to get out of the truck, even though I know how dangerous it is to sit here. There is gasoline in the tank and no camouflage on the truck. It is a clear target from the air, but we are warm. And it has been so long. Then I look down at my Leo, and I forget all about the danger. He is not breathing. I shake him hard, ripping open his coat and pulling up the newspaper. His chest is really just a brace of bones and blue skin and boils. Wake up, Leo. Breathe. Come on, my lion. I put my mouth on his, breathing for him. Finally, he shudders in my arms, and I feel a sour little breath slip into my mouth. He starts to cry. I hold him to me, crying too, and say, "Don't you leave me, Leo! I couldn't bear it!" "His hands are so hot, Mama," Anya says, and I see how scared she is by the suddenness of my yelling. I touch Leo's forehead. He is burning up. My hands are shaking as I reposition the newspaper and button up his sweater and coat. We are going out into the cold again. Anya leads the way out of the truck. I am so focused on Leo that I hardly notice the bombing and gunfire going on around me. Somewhere nearby, a truck explodes. It is like being in the eye of a hurricane. All around us, trucks are rolling past. Horses are clopping forward, pulling wagons. Soldiers are running, and we, poor starved Leningraders, are looking for rides. At last I find the infirmary. It consists of flapping, dirty white tents spread out across a snowy field. Inside, it is no hospital. It is a place for the dying and the dead. That is all. The smell is horrible. People are lying in their own freezing filth, moaning. I dare not put Leo down for fear he'll get worse. It seems like hours we wander around, looking for someone to help us. Finally, I find an old man hunched over a cane, staring at nothing. Only because he is wearing white do I approach him. "Please," I say, reaching for him. "My son is burning up." The man turns to me. He looks as tired as I feel. His hands are trembling slightly as he reaches for Leo. I can see the boils on his fingers. He touches Leo's forehead and then looks at me. It is a look I will never forget. Thank God there are no words with the look. "Get him to the hospital at Cherepovets." He shrugs. Maybe. I do not ask him to say more. In fact, I don't want him to. He hands me 4 white pills. 2 a day, he says, with clean water. When did he eat last? I shake my head. How can I say the words, tell the truth? It is impossible to get him to eat. "Cherepovets," is all he says. And then he turns and goes away. At every step, people are reaching for him, begging for help. Let's go. I take Anya's hand, and we make our slow, painful way through the infirmary and across the snowy field to the train station. Our papers are in order, and we climb into a car where we are again packed in too tightly. There is no seat for me or my children, so we sit on the cold floor. I hold my Leo on my lap, and Anya at my side. When it gets dark, I take out my small bag of nuts. I give Anya as many as I dare, and eat a few myself. I manage to get Leo to take one of the pills with a swallow of water I've brought. It is a long and terrible night. I keep leaning down to see if Leo is still breathing. I remember stopping once. The train doors opened and someone yelled out, "Any dead? Dead? Give them to us." Hands reach for Leo, trying to pull him out of my arms. I hang on to him, screaming, "He's breathing! He's breathing!" When the door closes and it's dark again, Anya moves closer to me. I can hear her crying. It is no better in Cherepovets. We have 1 day to spend here. At first, I think this is a blessing, that we will have time to save Leo before we board the next train, but he is getting weaker. I try not to see this truth, but it is lying in my arms. He coughs all the time. Now there is blood in it. He is burning hot and shivering. He will neither eat nor drink. The hospital here is an abomination. Everyone has dysentery and scurvy. You cannot stand for more than a moment or two without seeing a new Leningrader hobble in looking for help. Every hour, trucks loaded with corpses leave the hospital, only to return empty. People are dying where they stand. It is good that I am weak and hungry. I don't have the strength to run from place to place for help. Instead, I stand in the cold, bleak hallway holding my son. When people pass, I whisper, "Help him, please." Anya is asleep on the cold floor, sucking her thumb, when a nurse stops. "Help him," I say, handing Leo to her. She takes him gently. I try not to notice how his head lolls back. He's dystrophic, 3rd stage. There is no 4th. At my blank look, she says, "Dying. But if we could get fluids into him, maybe. I could take him to the doctor. It would be a difficult few days, maybe, though." She is so young, this nurse. As young as I was before the war began. I don't know how to believe her, or how not to. I have evacuation papers. We are supposed to be on the train to Vologda tomorrow. "They won't let your son on that train," the young nurse says. "Not one so sick." "If we stay, it will be impossible to get more tickets," I say. "We'll die here." The nurse says nothing to this. Lies are a waste of time. "We could start helping Leo now, couldn't we?" I say. "Maybe he'll be better by tomorrow." The nurse cannot hide her pity for me. "Of course. Maybe he'll be better." And he is. Better. After a night when Anya and I lay curled on the floor by Leo's dirty cot, I wake feeling bruised and cold. But when I get to my knees and look down at Leo, he is awake. For the first time in a long time, his blue eyes are clear. "Hi, Mama," he says in a scratchy, frog-like voice that cuts right through my heart. "Where are we? Where's Papa?" I waken Anya, pull her up beside me. "We're right here, baby. We are on our way to your Papa. He will be waiting for us in Vologda." I am smiling and crying as I look down at my son, my baby. Maybe it is the tears that blur my vision, or more likely it is hope. I am old enough to know better, but common sense is gone with the sound of his voice. I don't see how blue his skin is, how the boils have burst on his chest and are seeping yellow. I don't hear the thickness of his cough. I just see Leo, my lion, my baby with the bluest eyes and the purest laugh. So when the nurse comes by to tell me that I should get on the train, I am confused. "He's getting better," I say, looking down at him. The silence stretches out between us, broken only by Leo's coughing and the distant rat-a-tat-tat of gunfire. She looks pointedly at Anya. For the first time, I see how pale Anya is, how gray her chapped lips are, the angry boils on her throat. Her hair is falling out in clumps. How did I miss all that? "But—" I look around. "You said they won't let my son on the train." "There are too many evacuees. They won't transport the dying. You have papers for you and your daughter, yes?" How is it that I don't understand what she is saying to me until then? And how can I explain how it feels to finally understand? A knife in the heart would hurt less. "You're saying I should leave him here to die? Alone?" "I'm saying he will die." The nurse looks at Anya. "You can save her." She touches my arm. "I'm sorry." I stand there, frozen, watching her walk away. I don't know how long I stand there, but when I hear the train's whistle, I look down at the daughter I love more than my own life and the son of mine who is dying. "Mama?" Anya says, frowning up at me. I take Anya's hand and walk her out of the hospital. At the train, I kneel in front of her. She is so small, wrapped as she is in her bright red coat and wearing the valenki that are too big for her feet. Mama? I can't leave Leo here, I say, hearing the break in my voice. He can't die alone, is what I want to say, but how can I say such a thing to my 5-year-old? Does she know I am making a choice no mother should ever have to make? Will she someday hate me for this? Her face scrunches in a frown so familiar it breaks my heart. For a second, I see her as she used to be. But you are my strong one. You will be okay alone. She shakes her head, starts to cry. No, Mama, I want to stay with you. I reach into my pocket and take out a piece of paper. It still smells of sausage and my stomach churns at the scent of it. I write her name on the paper and pin it to her lapel. Papa will be waiting for you in Vologda. You find him. Tell him we'll be there by Wednesday. You two can meet Leo and me. It feels like a lie. Tastes like one. But she trusts me. I don't let her hug me. I can see her reaching, and I push her back into the crowd that is lining up around us. A woman is standing close. Anya hits her, and the woman stumbles sideways, cursing softly. Mama! I push my daughter at the stranger, who looks at me with glassy eyes. Take my daughter, I say. She has papers. Her father will be in Vologda. Alexander Ivanovich Marchenko. No, Mama! Anya is wailing, reaching for me. I mean to push her away so hard she stumbles, but I can't do it. At the last moment, I yank her into my arms and hold her tightly. The train whistle blows. Someone yells, Is she going? I unwrap Anya's arm from around my neck. You be strong, Anya. I love you, moja dusha. How can I call her my soul and then push her away? But I do. I do. At the last minute, I hand her the butterfly. Here, you hold this for me. I will come back for it, for you. No, Mama! I promise, I say, lifting her up, putting her in a stranger's arms. She is still crying, screaming my name and struggling to get free when the train doors slam shut. I stand there for a long time, watching the train grow smaller and smaller until it disappears altogether. The Germans are bombing again. I can hear the explosions all around, and people shouting and debris thumping on metal roofs. I hardly care. As I turn toward the hospital, it feels as if something falls out of me, but I don't look down, don't want to see whatever I've lost. Instead, I walk through the raining dirt and snow toward my son. Loss is a dull ache in my chest, a catch in my breathing, but I tell myself I have done the right thing. I will keep Leo alive by the sheer force of my will, and Sasha will find Anya in Vologda, and the 4 of us will meet up on Wednesday. It is such a beautiful dream. I keep it alive one breath at a time, like a timid candle flame in the cup of my hands. Back at the hospital, it is dark again. The smell of the place is unbearable, and it is cold. I can feel the wind prowling outside, testing every crack and crevice, looking for a way in. In his narrow, sagging cot, Leo is sucking in his sleep, chewing food that isn't there. He coughs almost constantly now, spasms that spew lacy blood designs across the woolen blankets. When I can stand it no more, I crawl into the cot and pull him into my arms. He burrows against me like the baby he once was, murmuring my name in his sleep. His breathing is a terrible thing to listen to. I stroke his hot, damp forehead. My hand is freezing, but it is worth it to touch him, to let him know I am here, beside him, all around him. I sing his favorite songs and tell him his favorite stories. Now and then he rouses, smiles sloppily at me, and asks for candy. No candy, I say, kissing his sunken blue cheek. I cut my finger again, let him suck on it until the pain makes me draw back. I am singing to him, barely able to remember the words, when I realize that he is not breathing anymore. I kiss his cheek, so cold, and his lips, and I think I hear him say, "I love you, Mama." But of course it is only my imagination. How will I ever forget how this was? How he died a little every day. How I let him. Maybe we should never have left Leningrad. I think I will not be able to bear this pain, but I do. For all of that day and part of the next I lie with him, holding him as he grows cold. In ordinary times, perhaps this wouldn't have been allowed, but these are far from ordinary times. Finally, I ease away from his little body and get up. As much as I want to lie with him forever, to just slowly starve to death with him, I cannot do it. I made a promise to Sasha. Live, he'd said, and I'd agreed. So with empty arms and a heart turned to stone, I leave my son there, all by himself, lying dead in a cot by the door. And once again, I start to walk. I know that all I will ever have of my son now is a date on the calendar and the stuffed rabbit that is in my suitcase. I will not tell you what I did to get a seat on the train going east. It doesn't matter anyway. I am not really me. I am this wasted, white-haired body that cannot rest, although I long just to lie down and close my eyes and give up. The ache of loss is with me always, tempting me to close my eyes. Anya. Sasha. These are the words I cling to, even though sometimes I forget of whom I am even dreaming. From my place on the train, I see the ruined countryside. Bodies in heaps. Scars on the land from falling bombs. Always there is the sound of aircraft and gunfire. The train moves forward slowly, stopping in several small towns. At each stop, starving people fight to get on board, to be one of the glassy-eyed, grimy crowd heading east. There is talk, whispered around me, of heavy fighting in front of us, but I don't listen. Don't care, really. I am too empty to care about much of anything. And then, miraculously, we arrive at Vologda. When the train doors open, I realize that I did not expect to make it here. I remember smiling. I even tuck my hair into my kerchief more tightly so Sasha will not see how old I have become. I clutch the small valise that holds all of my belongings, our belongings, and fight through the crowd to get to the front. Out in the cold, we disperse quickly, people going this way and that, probably looking for food or friends. I stand there, feeling the others peel away from me. In the distance, I hear the drone of planes, and I know what it means. We all know what it means. The air raid alarm sounds, and my fellow passengers start to run for cover. I can see people flinging themselves into ditches. But Sasha is there, not 100 yards in front of me. I can see that he is holding Anya's hand. Her bright red coat looks like a plump, healthy cardinal against the snow. I am crying before I take my first step. My feet are swollen and covered with boils, but I don't even notice. I just think, my family, and run. I want Sasha's arms around me so badly that I don't think. Stupid. I hear the bomb falling too late. Did I think it was my heart, that whistling sound, or my breathing? Everything explodes at once. The train, the tree beside me, a truck off to the side of the road. I see Sasha and Anya for a split second, and then they are in the air, flying sideways with fire behind them. When I wake up, I am in a hospital tent, I lie there until my memory resurfaces, and then I get up. All around me is a sea of burned, broken bodies. People are crying and moaning. It is a moment before I realize that I can see no colors. My hearing is muffled, as if there is cotton in my ears. The side of my face is scraped and cut and bleeding, but I hardly feel it. The red-orange fire is the last color I will ever see. "You should not be up," a man says to me. He has the worn look of someone who has seen too much war. His tunic is torn in places. "My husband!" I say, yelling to hear my own voice above the din. There is a ringing in my ears, too. "My daughter! A little girl in a red coat and a man. They were standing. The train was bombed. I have to find them." "I'm sorry," he says, and my heart is pounding so hard I can't hear anything past "no survivors, just you." Here, I push past him, stumbling from bed to bed, but all I find are strangers. Outside it is snowing hard and freezing cold. I do not recognize this place. It is an endless snowy field. The damage done by the blast is covered now in white, though I can see a heap that must be bodies. Then I see it. A small, dark blot on the snow, lying folded up against the nearest tent. I would like to say I ran toward it, but I only walk. I don't even see that my feet are bare until the burning cold sets in. It is her coat. My Anya's coat, or what is left of it. I cannot see the bright red anymore, but there is her name, written in my own hand, on a scrap of paper pinned to the lapel. The paper is wet and the ink blurred, but it is there. Half of the coat is missing. I do not want to imagine how that happened. One side is simply torn away. I can see black bloodstains on the pale lining, too. I hold it to my nose, breathing deeply. I can smell her in the fabric. Inside the pocket, I find the photograph of her and Leo that I'd sewn into the lining. "See," I'd said to her on the day we'd hidden it. That was back when they were first evacuating the children. It feels like decades ago. "Now your brother will always be with you." I take the tiny scrap of paper with her name on it and hold it in my hand. How long do I sit there in the snow, stroking my baby's coat, remembering her smile? Forever. No one will give me a gun. Every man I ask tells me to calm down, that I will feel better tomorrow. I should have asked a woman. Another mother who had killed one child by moving him and another by letting her go. Or maybe I am the only one who... Anyway, the pain is unendurable. And I do not want to get better. I deserve to be as unhappy as I am. So I return to my bed, get my boots and coat, and I start walking. I move like a ghost through the snowy countryside. There are so many other walking dead on the road that no one tries to stop me. When I hear gunfire or bombing, I turn toward it. If my feet hurt less, I would have run. I find what I am looking for on the 8th day. It is the front line. I walk past the Russians, my countrymen, who call out for me and try to stop me. I pull away, wrenching if I need to, hitting, kicking, and I keep going. I walk up to the Germans and stand in front of their guns. "Shoot me," I say, and I close my eyes. I know what they see, what I look like. A crazy, half-dead old woman holding a banged-up valise and a dirty, gray stuffed rabbit. 26. "But I am not a lucky woman," Mom said with a sigh. Silence followed that last, quietly spoken sentence. Nina wiped the tears from her eyes and stared at her mother in awe. How could that pain have been in her all along? How could a person survive all that? Mom stood up quickly. She took a step to the left and stopped, and then she turned to the right and stopped. It was as if she'd suddenly awakened from a dream, only to find herself in a strange room from which there was no escape. At last, with her shoulders rounded slightly downward, she went to the window and stared outside. Nina looked at Meredith, who looked as ruined as Nina felt. "My God," Maxime finally said, turning off the tape recorder. The click sounded harsh in the quiet room, reminded Nina that the story they'd just heard was important not only to their family. Mom remained where she was, her splayed hand pressed to her chest, as if maybe she thought her heart would stop beating or tumble right out of her body. What was she seeing right then? Her once sparkling Leningrad turned into a frozen, bombed-out wasteland where people died in the street and birds fell from the sky? Or maybe it was Sasha's face, or Anya's giggle, or Leo's last heartbreaking smile. Nina stared at the woman who had raised her and saw the truth at last. Her mother was a lioness, a warrior, a woman who'd chosen a life of hell for herself because she wanted to give up and didn't know how. And with that small understanding came another bigger one. Nina suddenly saw her own life in focus. All these years, she'd been traveling the world over, looking for her own truth in other women's lives. But it was here all along, at home, with the one woman she'd never even tried to understand. No wonder Nina had never felt finished, never wanted to publish her photographs of the women. Her quest had always been leading up to this moment, this understanding. She'd been hiding behind the camera, looking through glass, trying to find herself, but how could she? How could any woman know her own story until she knew her mother's? "They take me prisoner instead," Mom said, still staring out the window. Nina almost frowned. To her, it felt as if half an hour had passed since Mom's last sentence and this one, but really it had only been minutes. Minutes in which Nina had glimpsed the truth of her own life. "Prisoner," Mom muttered, shaking her head. "I try to die. Try. Always I am too weak to kill myself." She turned away from the window at last, looked at them. "Your father was one of the American soldiers who liberated the work camp. We were in Germany by then. It was the end of the war. Years later. The first time he spoke to me, I was not even paying attention. I was thinking that if I had been stronger, my children would have been with me on this day when the camp gates opened. And so when Evan asked me my name, I whispered, 'Anya.' I could have taken it back later, but I liked hearing her name every time someone spoke to me. It hurt me, and I welcomed the pain. It was the least of what I deserved. I went with your father, married him, because I wanted to be gone, and he was the only way I had to leave. I never really expected to start over. I was so sick. I expected, hoped, to die. But I did not. And, well, how can you not love Evan? There. That is it. Now you know." She reached down for her purse and picked it up, swaying slightly, as if balance were something she had lost in the telling of her story, and started for the door. Nina was on her feet in an instant. She and Meredith moved in tandem without a word or a look. They bookended Mom, each taking hold of one arm. At their touch, Mom seemed to stumble harder, almost fall. "You shouldn't. No more telling us what to feel, Mom," Nina said softly. "No more pushing us away," Meredith said, touching Mom's face, caressing her cheek. "You've lost so much." Mom made a sound, a little gulp. "Not us, though," Nina said, feeling tears sting her eyes. "You'll never lose us." Mom's legs gave out on her. She started to fold like a broken tent, but Nina and Meredith were there holding her upright. They got Mom back to her chair. Then they knelt on the floor in front of her, looking up, just as they'd done so often in their lives. But now the story was over, or mostly told, and from here on it would be a different story anyway. From now on, it would be their story. For all of her life, when Nina had looked at her mother's beautiful face, she'd seen sharp bones and hard eyes and a mouth that never smiled. Now Nina saw past that. The hard lines were fought for, imposed, a mask over the softness that lay beneath. "You should hate me," Mom said, shaking her head. Meredith lifted up just enough to put her hands on Mom's. "We love you." Mom shuddered, as if an icy wind had just blown past. Tears filled her eyes, and at the sight of them, the first tears Nina had ever seen in her mother's eyes, Nina felt her own tears welling. "I miss them so much," Mom said. And then she was crying. How long had she held back that simple sentence by force of will, and how must it feel to finally say it? I miss them. A few little words. Everything. Nina and Meredith rose again, folding Mom into their arms, letting her cry. Nina learned the feel of her mother then, and realized how much she'd missed by never being held by this remarkable woman. When Mom finally drew back, her face was ravaged by tears. Her hair was askew, and strands were falling across her red-rimmed, watery eyes, but she had never looked more beautiful. She was smiling. She put a hand on each of their faces. "Moja dusza," she said quietly to each of them. At Vasily's bedside, Maxim rose and cleared his throat, reminding them that they weren't alone. "That is one of the most amazing accounts of the siege of Leningrad I've ever heard," he said, taking the tape from the machine. "Stalin kept the lid on it for so long that stories like yours are only lately beginning to surface. This will make a real difference to people, Mrs. Whitson." "It was for my daughters," Mom said, straightening again. Nina watched her mother strengthen, and she wondered suddenly if all of the Leningrad survivors knew how to harden themselves like that. She supposed so. Numbers are difficult, of course, coming out of the government, but conservatively, over 1 million people died in the siege. More than 700,000 starved to death. You tell their story, too. Thank you. Maxim started to say something else, but Vasily made a croaking, chirping sound in the bed. Maxim leaned closer to his father, frowning. "What?" He leaned even closer. "I don't understand." "Thank you," Nina said quietly to her mother. Mom leaned forward, kissed her cheek. "My Ninochka," she whispered. "Thank you. You were the one who wouldn't let go." Nina should have felt pride at that, especially when she saw Meredith nodding in agreement, but it hurt instead. "I was only thinking about me, as usual. I wanted your story, so I made you talk. I never once worried about how much it could hurt you." Mom's smile lit up her still damp eyes. "This is why you matter to the world, Ninochka. I should have told you this long ago, but I let your father be both of our voices. It is yet another of my wrong choices. You shine a light on hard times. This is what your pictures do. You do not let people look away from that which hurts. I am so, so proud of what you do. You saved us. You did, Meredith agreed. I would have stopped her story. You got us here. Nina didn't know until then how a word like proud could rock your world, but it rocked hers, and she understood love in a way she hadn't before. The all-consuming way of it. She knew it would change her life, this understanding of love. She couldn't imagine living without it, without them again. And she knew, too, that there was more love out there for her, waiting in Atlanta, if only she knew how to reach for it. Maybe tomorrow she would send a telegram, say, what if I said I didn't want to go to Atlanta? What if I said I wanted a different life than that, a different life than everyone else's, but I wanted it with you? Would you follow me? Would you stay? What if I said I loved you? But that would be tomorrow. How will I go again? She said, looking at Meredith and her mom. How can I leave you both? We don't need to be together, Meredith said. Your work is who you are, Mom said. Love makes room for that. You will just come home more, I hope. While Nina was trying to figure out what to say to that, Maxime said, I'm sorry to be rude, but my father is not feeling well. Mom pulled away from Meredith and Nina and went to the bed. Nina followed. Mom stared down at Vasily. His face left lopsided by the stroke. There were tears on his temples, and water stained the pillow where they'd fallen. She reached down and touched his face, saying something in Russian. Nina saw him try to smile, and before she knew it, she was thinking of her father. She closed her eyes in prayer for perhaps the first time in her life, or maybe it wasn't a prayer. Actually, she just thought, thanks, Daddy, and let it go at that. The rest of it he knew. He'd been listening. Here, Maxime said, his frown deepening as he offered Mom a stack of black cassette tapes. I'm pretty sure he wants you to deliver these to his former student. Philip Kiselev hasn't worked on this project in years, but he has a lot of the original material, and he's not far from here. Just across the water in Sitka. Sitka, Mom said. We've already been there. The boat won't be going back. Actually, Meredith said, looking at her watch, the boat left Juneau 40 minutes ago. It will be at sea all day tomorrow. Vasily made a sound. Nina could tell that he was agitated and frustrated by his inability to make himself understood. Can he not mail the tapes? Mom said, and Nina wondered if her mother was afraid to touch them. Philip was his right hand for years in this research. His mother and my father knew each other in Minsk. Nina looked down at Vasily and thought again of her father and how a little thing could mean so much. Of course we'll deliver the tapes, she said. We'll go right now, and we'll have plenty of time to catch up with the boat in Skagway. Meredith took the stack of tapes and the piece of paper with the address on it. Thank you, Dr. Adamovich. And Maxime? No, Maxime said slowly. Thank you. I am honored to have met you, Veronika Petrovna Marchenko-Whitson. Mom nodded. She glanced briefly at the stack of black tapes in Meredith's hands, and then leaned down to whisper something in Vasily's ear. When she drew back, the old man's eyes were wet. He was trying to smile. Nina took Mom's arm and led her to the door. By the time they reached the front door, Meredith was at Mom's other side. They emerged 3 abreast, linked together into the pale blue light of a late spring day. The rain had stopped, leaving in its wake a world of sparkling, glittering possibility. The seaplane landed in Sitka at 7:30. "I could be in Los Angeles by now," Nina said as she followed Meredith out of the plane. "For a world traveler, you complain a lot," Meredith said, leading the way up the dock. "Remember when she was little?" Mom said to Meredith. "If her socks were wrinkled inside her shoes, she'd just sit down and scream. And if I put too much ketchup on her eggs or not enough, out would come the lip." "That is so not true," Nina said. "I was the good daughter. You're thinking of Meredith. Remember the fit she threw when you wouldn't let her go to Carrie Dover's slumber party? It was nothing compared to the way you made us all pay when Mom didn't wave goodbye to you before that softball tournament," Meredith said. Nina stopped in the middle of the dock and looked at Mom. "It was the train," she said. "You couldn't put me on a train and watch it go, could you?" "I tried to be strong enough," Mom said quietly. "I just couldn't watch that. I knew it hurt you, too. I'm sorry." Meredith knew that there would be dozens of moments like this between them. Now that they'd begun the reparation process, memories would have to be constantly reinterpreted. Like the day she'd dug up Mom's precious winter garden. It was as if she'd pulled up headstones and thrown them aside. No wonder Mom had gone a little crazy. And no wonder winters had always been difficult. And the play. Meredith saw it all through the prism of her new understanding. Of course Mom had stopped them from going forward. She and Jeff had been blithely acting out Mom's love story. The pain of that must have been awful. "No more apologies," Meredith said. "Let's just say it now, once. We're sorry for all the times we hurt each other because we didn't understand. Then we'll let it go. Okay?" She looked at her mom, who nodded, and then at Nina, who nodded too. They walked into Sitka and found rooms at a small bed and breakfast at the edge of town. From their decks, they could look out over the placid bay to the green humps of the nearby islands and all the way to the snowy peak of Mount Edgecombe. While Nina took a shower, Meredith sat out on the deck with her feet up on the railing. A lone eagle circled effortlessly above the water, its dark wingspan a sliver coiling around and around above the midnight blue water. Meredith closed her eyes and leaned back in her chair. As had been true all day, her mind was a jumble of thoughts and memories and realizations. She was reassessing her childhood, taking the pieces apart, re-examining them in light of her new understanding of her mother. Strangely, the strength she now saw in her mother was becoming a part of Meredith, too. Jeff's comment, "You're like her, you know," took on a new significance, gave Meredith a new confidence. If there was one thing she'd learned in all of this, it was that life and love can be gone any second. When you had it, you needed to hang on with all your strength and savor every second. The door behind her slid open and clicked shut. She thought at first it was Nina, here to tell her the bathroom was free, but then she smelled the sweet rose scent of Mom's shampoo. "Hey," Meredith said, smiling. "I thought you'd gone to bed." "I cannot sleep. Maybe it's the color of the night. I cannot sleep with the tapes in my room," Mom said, sitting down in the chair beside Meredith. "You can put them in our room." Mom coiled her hands together nervously. "I need to give them away tonight." "Tonight? It's 9:15, Mom." "Duh. I asked downstairs. This address is only 3 blocks away." Meredith turned in her chair. "You mean this? What's wrong?" "Honestly, I do not know. I am being silly and old, I know this, but I want to be done with this task. I'll call him. There is no listing. I called information from my room. We are going to have to just show up. Tonight is best. Tomorrow maybe he will be at work and we'll have to wait. With the tapes. Mom looked at her. With the tapes, she said quietly. And Meredith saw the vulnerability Mom was trying to hide. And fear. She saw that too. After all that Mom had been through, somehow holding on to the physical evidence of her life was the thing that had finally scared her. Okay, Meredith said. I'll get Nina. We'll all go. She got up from her chair and started to go back into the room. As she passed Mom, she paused just long enough to put a hand on her mother's shoulder. Through the cable-knit wool of the hand-knit sweater, she felt the angular sharpness of bone. She couldn't walk past her mother lately without touching her. After so many barren, distant years, that was a miracle in itself. She opened the sliding glass door and went into the small room. Inside, there was a pair of twin beds, both dressed in red and green plaid with moose-shaped black pillows. On the walls were black and white prints of Sitka's Cling It Past. Nina's bed was unmade already and piled with clothes and camera gear. Meredith knocked on the bathroom door, got no answer, and went in. Nina was drying her hair and singing Madonna's Crazy for You at the top of her lungs. With her short black hair and perfect skin, she looked about 20 years old. Meredith tapped her on the shoulder. Nina jumped in surprise and almost dropped the hairdryer. Grinning, she clicked it off and turned. Way to scare the crap out of me. I need a haircut, badly. I'm starting to look like Edward Scissorhands. Mom wants to drop off the tapes tonight. Oh. Okay. Meredith couldn't help smiling at that. There, in a nutshell, was the difference between them. Nina didn't care what time it was, or that it was rude to stop by without calling first, or that Mom had had a hard day and should be resting. All Nina heard was a call to adventure, and she always answered that call. It was a trait Meredith was determined to cultivate. In less than 10 minutes they were on their way, the three of them walking up the sidewalk in the direction the innkeeper had shown them. It still wasn't full-on night. The sky was a deep plum color, with stars everywhere. From here they looked close enough to touch. A slight breeze whispered through the evergreens, the only real noise out here besides their footsteps on the cement. Somewhere in the distance, a boat's foghorn sung out. The houses on this street were old-fashioned looking, with porches out front and peaked roofs. The yards were well tended. The smell of roses was heavy in the air, sweetening the tang of the nearby sea. This is the house, Meredith said. She'd taken charge of the map. The lights are on. That's cool, Nina said. Mom stood there, staring at the neat white house. Its porch railing was the same ornate fretwork as they had at home, and there was more ornate decor along the eaves. The embellishments gave the place a fairy tale appearance. It looks like my grandfather's dacha, Mom said. Very Russian, and yet American, too. Nina moved in close to Mom, took her arm. You sure you want to do this now? Mom's answer was to move forward resolutely. At the door, Mom drew in a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and knocked hard. Twice. The door was opened by a short, heavy-set man with thick black eyebrows and a gray mustache. If he was surprised to find 3 unknown women on his doorstep at 9:30, he showed no sign. "Hello there," he said. "Philip Kiselev," Mom said, reaching for the bag of tapes in Nina's hand. "There's a name I haven't heard in a while," he said. Mom's hand drew back. "You are not Philip Kiselev?" No. I'm Gerald Kuntz. Philip was my cousin. He's gone now. Oh. Mom frowned. I am sorry to have bothered you. We have mistaken information. Meredith looked at the piece of paper in her sister's hand. There was no error in reading. This was the address they'd been given. Dr. Adamovich must... Vasya? Gerald's mustached lip flipped into a big, toothy smile. He turned, yelled, "They're friends of Vasya's, honey!" Not friends, really, Mom said. We are sorry to have bothered you. We will recheck our information. Just then a woman came bustling toward them. She was dressed in silky black pants with a flowing tunic blouse. Her curly gray hair was drawn back in a loose ponytail. Stacy? Nina said in surprise. A second later, Meredith recognized their waitress from the Russian restaurant. Well, well, Stacy said, smiling brightly. If it isn't my new Russian friends. Come in, come in. To Gerald, she added, they stopped by the diner the other day. I broke out the caviar. Gerald grinned. She must have liked you on the spot. Nina moved first, pulling Mom along. Here, here, Stacy said. Have a seat. I'll make us some tea and you can tell me how you found me. She led them into a comfortably decorated living room, complete with an ottoman bed and a holy corner where a trio of candles was burning. She made sure each of them was seated and then said, Did Ger say you are friends of Vasily's? Not friends, Mom answered, sitting stiffly. There was a crash somewhere, and Gerald said, Oops, grandkids, and ran from the room. We're babysitting our son's children this week. I'd forgotten how busy they are at that stage. Stacy smiled. I'll be right back with tea. She hurried out of the room. Do you think Dr. Adamovich was confused? Or did Maxime get the address wrong? Meredith said as soon as they were alone. Kind of coincidental that these people are Russian and that they knew the doctor, Nina remarked. Mom stood up so suddenly she hit the coffee table with her shin, but she didn't seem to notice. She walked around the table and across the room, coming to a stop at the holy corner. From here, Meredith could see the usual decorations. An altar-like table, a couple of icons, a family photograph or two, and a few burning votives. Stacy came back into the living room and set her tray down on the coffee table. She poured the tea and handed Meredith a cup. Here you go. Do you know Dr. Adamovich? Nina asked. I do, Stacy said. He and my father were great friends. I helped him with a research study for years. Not academic help, of course. Typing, copying, that sort of thing. The siege research? Meredith asked. That's right, Stacy said. These are tapes, Nina said, indicating the wrinkled paper sack at her feet. Mom just told her story to Dr. Adamovich and he sent us here. Stacy paused. What do you mean, her story? She was in Leningrad then, during the war, Meredith said. And he sent you here? Stacy turned to look at Mom, who stood so still and straight she seemed to be made of marble. Why would he do that? Stacy went to Mom, stood beside her. Again the teacup rattled in its saucer. Tea? She asked, looking at Mom's stern profile. Meredith didn't know why, but she stood up. Beside her, Nina did the same thing. They came up behind Mom. Meredith saw what had gotten her mother's attention. There were 2 framed photographs on the corner table. One was a black and white picture of a young couple. In it, the woman was tall and slim, with jet black hair and an oversized smile. The man was blond and gorgeous. There were pale white lines that quartered the picture, as if it had been folded for many years. Those are my parents, Stacy said slowly. On their wedding day. My mother was a beautiful woman. Her hair was so soft and black, and her eyes. I still remember her eyes. Isn't that funny? They were so blue with gold. Mom turned slowly. Stacy looked into Mom's eyes, and the teacup she was holding fell to the hardwood floor, spilling liquid and breaking into pieces. Stacy's plump hand was shaking as she reached for something on the table, but not once did she look away. And then she was holding something out to Mom, a small, jeweled butterfly. Mom dropped to her knees on the floor, saying, "Oh, my God!" Meredith wanted to reach out and help her, but she and Nina both stood back. It was Stacy who knelt in front of her. "I am Anastasia Alexovna Marchenko-Kunz from Leningrad. Mama, is it really you?" Mom drew in a sharp breath and started to cry. "My Anya!" Meredith's heart felt as if it were breaking apart and swelling and overflowing all at once. Tears were streaming down her face. She thought of all that these two had been through, and all the lost years, and the miracle of this reunion was almost more than she could believe. She moved over to be with Nina. They put their arms around each other and watched their mother come alive. There was no other word for it. It was as if these tears, of joy perhaps for the first time in decades, watered her parched soul. "How?" Mom asked. "Papa and I woke up on a medical train going east. He was so hurt. Anyway, by the time we got back to Vologda..." "We waited," Stacy said, wiping her eyes. "We never stopped looking." Mom swallowed hard. Meredith could see how she steeled herself to say, "We?" Stacy put a hand out. Mom took it, clutched it really, hanging on. Stacy led her through the living room and out a set of French doors. Beyond lay a perfectly tended backyard. The scent of flowers was a sweetness in the air. Lilacs and honeysuckle and jasmine. Stacy flipped a switch, and a string of lights came on throughout the yard. That was when Meredith saw the small, squared garden within a garden tucked in the back of the yard. Even from here, with the insistent light, she could see an ornate bit of fencing. She heard her mother say something in Russian, and then they were moving again, all of them, walking down a stone path to a garden that was almost exactly like the one Mom had created at home. A white ironwork fence with ornate curlicues and pointed tips framed a patch of ground. Inside was a polished copper bench that faced 3 granite headstones. There were flowers blooming all around them. Overhead, the sky erupted in amazing magical color. Darting strands of violet and pink and orange glowed amid all those stars. The Northern Lights. Mom sat, collapsed really, on the copper bench, and Stacy sat beside her, holding her hand. Meredith and Nina stood behind her. Each put a hand on Mom's shoulder. They read the inscriptions on the headstones. Veronika Petrovna Marchenko, 1919 to... Remember our lime tree in the summer garden. I will meet you there, my love. Leo Alexovich Marchenko, 1938 to 1942. Our lion. Gone too soon. But it was the last marker that made Meredith squeeze her mother's shoulder. Alexander Andreevich Marchenko, 1917 to 2000. Beloved husband and father. "Last year?" Mom said, turning to Stacy, whose eyes filled with tears. "He waited his whole life for you," she said, "but his heart just gave out last winter." Mom closed her eyes and bowed her head. Meredith couldn't imagine the pain of that. How it must feel to know that the love of your life had been alive and looking for you all these years, only to miss him by months. And yet he was here somehow, in this garden that so matched the one her mother had created. He always said he'd be waiting for you in the summer garden. Mom slowly opened her eyes. "Our tree," she said, staring at his marker for a long time. Then, slowly, she did what she always did, what she could do that so few others could. She straightened her back and lifted her chin and managed a smile, wobbly and uncertain as it was. "Come," she said in that magical voice, the one that had changed all their lives in the past weeks. "We will have tea. There is much to talk about. Anya, I would like to introduce you to your sisters. Meredith used to be the organized one, and Nina is just a little bit crazy. But we're changing, all of us, and you will change us even more." Mom smiled, and if there was a shadow of sadness in her eyes, a memory of the words, "I'll meet you there," it was to be expected, and it was softened by the joy in her voice. And maybe that was how it was supposed to be, how life unfolded when you lived it long enough. Joy and sadness were part of the package. The trick, perhaps, was to let yourself feel all of it, but to hold on to the joy just a little more tightly, because you never knew when a strong heart could just give out. Meredith took her new sister's hand and said, "I am so happy to meet you, Anya. We've heard so much about you." No foreign sky protected me. No stranger's wing shielded my face. I stand as witness to the common lot, survivor of that time, that place. Anna Akhmatova, from Poems of Akhmatova, translated by Stanley Kunitz with Max Hayward. Epilogue 2010. Her name is Vera, and she is a poor girl, a nobody. No one in America can really understand this girl or the place in which she lives. Her beloved Leningrad, Peter's famous window to the west, is like a dying flower, still beautiful to behold but rotting from within. Not that Vera knows this yet. She is just a girl, full of big dreams. Often in the summer, she wakes in the middle of the night, called by some sounds she can never recall. At her window, she leans out, seeing all the way to the bridge. In June, when the air smells of limes and new flowers, and the night is as brief as the brush of a butterfly's wing, she can hardly sleep for excitement. It is Bella Noci, the time of white summer nights when darkness never falls and the streets are never quiet. I cannot help smiling as I close this book. My book. After all these years, I have finished my journal. Not a fairy tale, not a pretense. My story, as true as I can tell it. My father would be proud of me. I am a writer at last. It is my gift to my daughters, although they have given so much more to me, and without them, of course, these words would still be trapped inside, poisoning me from within. Meredith is at home with Jeff. They are preparing for Gillian's wedding, and the plans are all-consuming. Maddie is still at work, managing the 4 gift shops her mother runs. I have never seen Meredith so happy. These days her schedule is full of things she loves to do, and she and Jeff are often traveling. They say it is to research his novels, which are so successful, but I think they simply love to be together. Nina is upstairs with her Daniel, whom she has never married, but loves more than she realizes. They have followed each other around the world on one amazing adventure after another. Supposedly they are packing now to leave again, but I suspect they are making love. Good for them. And Anya? I don't care that she Americanized her name. She will always be Anya to me. Is at church with her family. They come down often throughout the year and fill this house with laughter. My eldest daughter and I spend hours together in the kitchen, talking to each other in Russian, remembering the ghosts in the room. In words and looks and smiles, we honor them at last. I open the journal one last time and write, "For my children," in as bold a hand as I can manage at my age. Then I close it and put it aside. I cannot help closing my eyes. Falling asleep comes easily to me these days, and the room is so warm on this late December day. I think I hear the sound of a child laughing. Or maybe that is a leftover sound, the remainder of our Christmas dinner. We are together again this year, all of us, this new version of my family. I am a lucky woman. I did not always know that, but I do now. With all the mistakes I have made, all the bad and terrible choices, still I am loved in my old age, and more important, perhaps, I love. I open my eyes, startled by something, some noise. For a moment, I am confused, uncertain of my surroundings. Then I see the familiar fireplace, the Christmas tree still up in the corner, and the picture of me that hangs above the mantel. It hangs where once I had a painting of a troika. At first, I didn't like Nina's photograph. I look so terribly, terribly sad. But it has grown on me. It was the beginning of this new life, the time when I finally learned that with love comes forgiveness. It is a famous photograph now. People all over the world have seen it and call me a hero. Ridiculous. It is simply the image of a woman who threw too much of her life away and was lucky enough to get some of it back. In the corner of the room, my holy corner still stands. The candles burn from morning to night. Both of my wedding pictures stand upright, reminding me every day that I have been fortunate. Beside the photograph of Anya and Leo, a dirty gray stuffed rabbit sits slumped on his side. Comrade Floppy. His fake fur is matted, and he is missing one eye, and sometimes I carry him around with me for comfort. I stand up. My knees hurt, and my feet are swollen, but I do not care. I have never cared about such things. I am a Leningrader. I walk through the quiet kitchen and into the dining room. From here, I can see my winter garden, where everything is covered with snow. The sky is the color of burnished copper. Ice and frost dangle like diamond earrings from the eaves above the porch. And I think of my sweet Evan, who saved me when I needed saving and gave me so much. He is the one who so often told me that forgiveness could be mine if I would reach out. I would give anything to have listened to him earlier, but I know he hears me now. I am barefooted and wearing only a flannel nightgown. If I go outside, Meredith and Nina will worry that I'm going crazy again, that I am slipping. Only Anya will understand. Still, I open the door. The knob turns easily in my hand, and cold air hits me so hard that for a beautiful, tragic second, I am back in my beloved city on the Neva. I walk across the new fallen snow, feeling it burn and freeze the bottoms of my feet. I am almost to the garden when he appears. A man, dressed all in black, with golden hair set aglow by the sunlight. It cannot be him. I know this. I go to the bench, hold on to its cold black frame. He moves toward me, gliding almost, moving with an elegance that is new or that I don't remember. When he draws near, I look up and stare into the green eyes of the man I've loved for more than 70 years. Green! The color takes my breath away and makes me feel young again. He is real. And here. I can feel his warm presence, and when he touches me, I shiver and sit down. There are so many things to say, but I can say nothing except his name. Sasha. We've waited, he says. And at the sound of his voice, a shadow peels away from the blackness of his coat and takes its own shape, a smaller version of the man. Leo, I say, unable to say more. My arms ache to reach out for my baby boy, to hold him. He looks so healthy and robust, his cheeks pink with life. Then I see that same cheek, slack and gray-blue, sheened in frost. I hear him say, "I'm hungry, Mama. Don't leave me." At that, pain uncoils in my chest, making me gasp out loud, but Sasha is there, taking my hand, saying, "Come, my love, to the summer garden." The pain is gone. I look up into my Sasha's green eyes and remember the grass in which we knelt so long ago. It was there that I fell in love. Leo clings to me as he always did, and I scoop him up, laughing, forgetting how I'd once been unable to hold him in my arms. "Come," Sasha says again, kissing me, and I follow. I know that if I look back, I will see my body, old and withered, slumped on that bench in the snow. That if I wait, I will hear my daughters discover what has happened and begin to cry. So I do not look back. I hold on to my Sasha and kiss my lion's throat. I have waited so long for this, to see them again, to feel like this. And I know my girls will be okay now. They are sisters, a family. This is the gift from
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.